Order number 1, administration of oath. Order number 2, communication from the chair. Order number 3, messages.
Okay, Honorable Senators, I wish to report to the Senate that pursuant to Standing Order 41, 3, and 4, I have received the following messages from the Speaker of the National Assembly regarding the appointment of a member into the Parliamentary Service Commission. That pursuant to the provisions of Article 127(2)(d) of the Constitution, by a resolution passed on Wednesday, August 1st, 2018, the National Assembly appointed the Honorable Samuel Kiprono Chepkonga as a member of the Parliamentary Service Commission. Now, therefore, in accordance with the said provisions of the standing orders, I hereby convey the aforementioned resolution, pipe poles at 4 corners of the said parcel, duly demarcated its boundaries. 3, early this year, the petitioner visited the property with the intention of developing the same, only to find that the poles had been affixed as well as the beacons to the parcel of land were no longer in place. The petitioner approached the neighbor to the property, who said that the whole property, including the one in question, belonged to the family, and the family had never subdivided nor sold it. The petitioner sought the assistance of the Chief Land Registrar at Earth House, the Director of Survey, District Survey in Kajiado, the Senior Land Registrar, and various other officers, both at the county and national level, to have the matter resolved. All these officers have not been able to resolve the matter. The petitioner therefore prays that the Senate urgently investigates this matter with a view of having these rights to property upheld and guaranteed in the Constitution, and for assistance to having ownership of the said parcel of land reinstated to him. Honorable Senators, pursuant to Standing Order 225, I shall now allow comments, observations, or clarifications in relation to the petition for not more than 30 minutes. Senator Msurve.
Mr. Speaker, sir, thank you very much for giving me an opportunity to add my thoughts to this particular petition. And I want to say, Mr. Speaker, that this petitioner is actually justified to bring his petition here. This is because, Mr. Speaker, issues of land deals gone sour are on rampant in this country. There are many people, Mr. Speaker, who buy parcels of land. They spend a lot of money, they take loans. Sometimes they only realize that they did not buy land, they bought a lot of air, Mr. Speaker, that there was no land at all, Mr. Speaker. And it is very common, Mr. Speaker, that there are people who are duping innocent Kenyans. And it is a sad situation, Mr. Speaker. And I'm just wondering, Mr. Speaker, if a search was done. And if a search was done, Mr. Speaker, some land, especially ancestral lands, have issues, Mr. Speaker. You'll find that probably a man had 5 sons and decided that son A will get 5 acres of land, and son B will get 3 acres of land, son 3 will get 2, and so on. And then, Mr. Speaker, one of the sons decides, now I'm going to sell my parcel of land, and takes money from people, Mr. Speaker. And in such a situation, Mr. Speaker, and you'll find that maybe the son does not have a title deed. And if he does not have a title deed and he decided to sell his inheritance, Mr. Speaker, if this person has sincerely taken money from someone, Mr. Speaker, he has to provide land to this person, Mr. Speaker. I really feel for this person who actually spent more than 2 million buying land that was not there, Mr. Speaker, and he thought that he was buying 5 acres of land, only to realize, Mr. Speaker, that there was no land, it was just full of air. Mr. Speaker, in fact, I really feel for him that he went to develop. And I'm imagining maybe he went with his materials. And I'm imagining maybe he even bought some, stones. He even bought some ballast. He even ordered for cement. He even ordered for all the things that are needed in order to come up with a structure, Mr. Speaker. This is somebody who wants a roof over his head, Mr. Speaker. And I feel for him that maybe he took a bank loan, even after taking the bank loan, only to realize that maybe the bank is already beginning to deduct him money, Mr. Speaker, for a land that is not there. It is really, really painful, Mr. Speaker. And I also feel for this person that he went to the relevant authorities. He went to the people who matter in Kajiado County. And I can imagine he was even almost nearly before them to show them how desperate he was. But they did not really attend to him. They gave him a deaf ear. Mr. Speaker, my suggestion is that this Senate should see how to intervene for this person actually to be helped so that he gets the land he bought, in quotes. He should be given the land. Mr. Speaker, if he's not given the land, then he should be compensated. And I want to say, Mr. Speaker, if he's compensated, it should not be the money that he gave the land vendor, Mr. Speaker. Because I can imagine if he gave 2 million for the land, right now the 2 million might have multiplied to 6 million and so on, Mr. Speaker, because of the appreciation of land and so on, Mr. Speaker. So I want to suggest, Mr. Speaker, that this petition should go to the relevant committee and it should be addressed with speed, because I can imagine the man is frustrated. And if he's frustrated, Mr. Speaker, when someone is frustrated, he can vent his frustration on the wrong people, Mr. Speaker. And I hope this man is not venting his frustration on his children or his wife, Mr. Speaker. Let us intervene with speed and see how we can redeem this situation, Mr. Speaker. We are here to serve Kenyans. We are here, Mr. Speaker, to help the vulnerable. At the moment, this person is vulnerable, Mr. Speaker. So they need to intervene with speed, Mr. Speaker. Thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Senator Mtula Kilonzo Jr.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, I've been concerned for the last 10 minutes after that petition was read. And the reason I'm concerned, Mr. Speaker, is the threshold that we have used as a Senate for admitting petitions. Now we are dealing with a private transaction. Mr. Speaker, my office has about 1,000 of them. Now this Senate has admitted one. That precedent, in my view, is wrong. Because, Mr. Speaker, if we get into private ownership transactions, we will turn ourselves into a court of law or village elders in matters which we shouldn't get into. This Senate should deal with public matters where we do not have interest or where we are not going to pass judgment on personal matters of people where they have done transactions. But lastly, Mr. Speaker, there are avenues available very easily for people like these ones who have not received transactions, kituo cha sheria. So, Mr. Speaker, my only concern is that we are already overloaded with work. Already. Why would we load this Senate with private transactions of dear Kenyans when we have lawyers who can do pro bono cases for them, including myself, Mr. Speaker, without burdening taxpayers with this petition? I'm extremely concerned, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Senator Cheruiyot Haron.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Indeed, I want to also register my concern alongside that of Senator Mutula Kilonzo Jr. that when this petition was first read, alongside my colleagues, we were just discussing actually while Senator Musuruve was making a contribution on whether, as Senate, time has come for us to set the threshold of what passes to be a petition that is worth being brought before this House, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, basic knowledge should be able to inform us that it must be a matter of extreme public interest, at least that affects a county, because that is our primary duty. Otherwise, we'll be adjudicating ourselves roles that we do not have in the first place. For example, the simple question that I would want to ask is, what will this committee conclude? What will they say? Where will they take the person who has deprived Mr. Nganga of his land? I mean, it doesn't make sense. And therefore, I want to say that I oppose this petition, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Olekina.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, sir, I think, first of all, from the onset, I rise to oppose this petition on the following reasons. One, even though this constitution gives every Kenyan a right to petition, there are just certain things that can be dealt with by a court of law. If we limit ourselves to looking at individual transactions where somebody probably went and he was duped by a broker to buy a parcel of land that belongs to a Maasai, that the community does not even realize that that parcel of land was sold, then we will not be able to do the work that this constitution mandates us to do in terms of making legislation. Mr. Speaker, sir, I know Article 40 of the Constitution protects the right to property. But also, Kenyans ought to know out there that there is a provision in that Constitution that does not protect any property that could have been acquired illegally. I think what this petitioner ought to have done is to go through the due process of the law, file his petition through the Lands Court, which is very active, and I actually want to congratulate the judiciary for having expedited a lot of these land cases. Mr. Speaker, sir, on that note also, I think it is important for this House to be able to look at Article 119 of the Constitution, which gives a person a right to petition this Parliament and come up with legislation that can be able to limit what can be accepted here and what should not be accepted. Mr. Speaker, sir, all these issues we are having in Kenya right now, in terms of land, in terms of what is happening in the Mau forest, it is because of such dubious activities. Mr. Speaker, sir, a lot of people there went there. They were probably duped to buy land that was not there in the first place. So I think instead of us wasting so much time and looking at transactions that can be dealt with by either a group of wazés in the village or even the court or the Ministry of Lands, we should focus on issues like the Mau forest, something which is affecting, hundreds of thousands of people who lives in this country. So, Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise to oppose this petition. And, Mr. Speaker, sir, I think you should do what your brother in the lower house did. Put the petition where it belongs, and which is it's in the garbage, whatever, or you call it a shredder. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Senator Agnes Zani.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As I listened to that petition being read out, yes, I had those thoughts about, is this petition actually well positioned within the Senate? And the answer is yes and no, partly, I think. Because these issues, as much as they are significant for this one individual, are issues that many people suffer from. So there must be a problem somewhere, at ministry level, at policy level, at land board level, because every other day you hear this happens over and over again. People buy land today, then you find members of the family somehow did not do due disclosure. If a man has 3 wives and their children and they appear and actually consent to that land being sold, but another one appears tomorrow who did not know about it and another son comes on board, there is a problem. So some sort of mechanism has to be put into place to ensure that if family members are meant to actually consent to that sale, that they're meant to do so wholesomely, that each member should actually be involved. Because, Mr. Speaker, I have a feeling that this is a trick that family use. And it's the oldest trick and easiest trick to use in the book. Because all you have to do is actually later on come and reclaim the land and say that you did not know initially that all members had actually given consent. Because you will maybe really, philosophically speaking, not even be able to get all the members on board. So for me, this is a problem that is indicative of a particular ill, and it's a big problem. We might not want to contextualize this petition as a petition for the Senate, but we might want maybe to give an agenda to a relevant committee to look at these issues wholesomely. Mr. Speaker, now Kenya is opening up. People are buying land more in Kitengela. People are buying more land in Malindi. People are indeed buying more land in Kajiado. So this problem will come over and over again. From the other side, I think even by this petitioner bringing this petition to the Senate, he actually has a good view about this House. He actually thought, he didn't take it to the National Assembly, he brought it to the Senate because he felt that at the Senate, some sort of justice will be dispensed. So I think there's a problem in that yes, it's coming from an individual, but I think from a macro perspective, it is an issue that affects many other Kenyans who might not be able to bring this problem. We might not want to take individual petitions and specific cases, but we might want to look at the broader picture and look at some of the issues that have been brought up and ask ourselves, have these issues been well consolidated within the context of the wards and within the counties, so that when a parcel of land is sold and paid for, that it is actually properly sold and paid for. That once land has been sold, it doesn't actually revert. So I think as much as the petitioner is very, very specific and has resort and recourse to other organizations, other boards that might be able to help him, I think he raises critical issues that are dear to many Kenyans. Through this petition, we are coming across issues that affect very, very many Kenyans, and I think those issues are also very, very important. Because if you're talking about development, you're talking about development through infrastructure, you're talking about development through agriculture. Many people are going through agriculture. There's so many Kenyans who are unemployed, and they're going to agriculture, they're buying land. This person probably had a promise for themselves. They had a dream to achieve, they might not be able to achieve that dream. Mr. Speaker, I don't know what decisions we'll make and how we'll handle it, but I think if there's a way that we can actually take this to the committee as an issue so that they look at it from a macro perspective and actually analyze what problems might be happening and maybe give a general chance for the relevant ministries. It gives us an opening to actually call in the officials from the Ministry of Land with some sort of the issues that are coming up and issues that need to be dealt with, Mr. Speaker, because the confidence of Kenyans is being lost. People want to invest, they're not sure where to invest. You do due diligence, but you realize you haven't done due diligence. You sell your land today, and then somebody comes and tells you actually that that land had not been sold. You find you're on a piece of land. One time you're suddenly surrounded. Somebody else comes and says that's the piece of land. And the problem with this is that sometimes in certain places it actually causes a lot of conflict at a social level, but even at a magnitude of, even at a county level, where you have problems with people who feel at the end of the day they're those who are being displaced. Some people are able to have another title deed for a property which already has somebody else with the title deed. And these issues, this is not the first time we're facing them. We've had them for almost 10 years. But I don't think they've been properly and systematically addressed. And that's why the problem persists, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Senator Khaneri George.
Mr. Speaker, I thank you for the opportunity. Mr. Speaker, I just walked in when Senator Cheruiyot was on the floor, and therefore I do not have the privilege to have listened to the prayers in the petition. I do not know the merits or the demerits, and therefore I will not speak to the petition, the contents of the petition. But Mr. Speaker, I want to speak to the procedure, because I hear Senator Ledama and Senator Cheruiyot asking you to disregard this petition. I want to differ with the senators, Mr. Speaker. One, I want to state that the Constitution of Kenya is very explicit that any Kenyan is free to petition any House of Parliament, and therefore this particular Kenyan who petitioned was just exercising his democratic right as provided for in the Constitution. Mr. Speaker, further to that, our standing orders are also very explicit on how we deal with a petition that is validly presented to this House. I want to believe that this petition, whether it has merits or demerits, is validly presented to this House, and we must follow the procedures as provided for in the standing orders in disposing of this particular petition. Specifically, Standing Order 226, paragraph 1, says that every petition presented or reported pursuant to this part shall stand committed to the relevant standing committee. We cannot run away from that. The petition is already presented here, and validly so, and therefore it must be committed to the relevant committee, notwithstanding the merits of the petition. But Mr. Speaker, what I just want to say is that, yes, I see the point being raised by Senator Ledema Olekina and Senator Cheruiyot. Lekina says we throw it to the trash. We cannot do that, Mr. Speaker. Let's just deal with it the way it's supposed to be dealt with. But going forward, Mr. Speaker, I think that's where now we must now find a remedy, that going forward, these petitions must be vetted before they are presented to the House. Because once it's presented to the House, then we have no choice. We have just to deal with it. Regardless of how, how bad it may be, how skewed it may be. But, Mr. Speaker, going forward, we must have a mechanism to vet these petitions before they are presented to the House. I therefore want to urge you, Mr. Speaker, to follow our standing order, commit this petition to the relevant committee, let the committee deal with the petition. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Okay, honorable senators, pursuant to standing order 2261, the petition stands committed to the Standing Committee on Lands, Environment and Natural Resources, and I hope the committee will take note of the issues raised by honorable senators as they address the issue. So in terms of standing order 2262, the committee is required in not more than 60 days from the time of reading the prayer to respond to the petitioner by way of a report addressed to the petitioner and laid on the table of the Senate. I thank you. Next order.
Order number 5, papers.
Majority Leader. Chair Finance.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, sir, I beg to lay the following paper on the table of the House of the Senate today, Tuesday, 7th August 2018. Report of the Standing Committee on Finance and Budget on the Salaries and Remuneration Commission, Amendment Bill, Senate Bills number 12 of 2018.
Senator Professor Kabar.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to lay the following paper on the table of the Senate today, Tuesday the 7th, August 2018, the second report of the Procedure and Rules Committee on the review of the standing orders laid on the table of the House on Tuesday, 7th August 2018.
Next order.
Order number 6, notices of motion.
Chairperson, Standing Committee on Justice, Legal Affairs and Human Rights.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I didn't know they would through, but I thought the debate on Solai was supposed to proceed. But I am...
It's a notice of motion.
Oh, sorry. Sorry, notice of motion, extension of time, that aware that the Senate passed a motion on review of policy and legislative framework on the fight against corruption by Senator Dr. Isaac Mwaura on 31st, 2018, and referred to the Senate Standing Committee on Justice, Legal Affairs and Human Rights for consideration, appreciating that the duration accorded to the committee to consider the motion is to lapse on 31st July 2018, regretting that due to the heavy workload and sheer magnitude of the assignment, the committee is yet to conclude its deliberations and tables its report in the House and requires more time to conduct a further and thorough inquiry into the matter. Now, therefore, the Senate resolves to extend the duration by a further period of 30 days.
What's your point of order, Senator Mutula Kilonzo Jr.?
Mr. Speaker, I'm very curious. Maybe you can direct us. My good friend Chairman is moving his motion from this side of the House. We actually don't mind adopting him. From this side of the House, he's a good gentleman, a good lawyer. But is it right under the standing orders, and is it plausible that a member can move from either side of the House? That, Mr. Speaker, is something that is very curious under the standing orders. Otherwise, then Orengo should be on whichever side he feels like any day of the week. Thank you.
Senator Haji Yusuf. Sakaja. Okay, Senator Sakaja, you are using...
Mr. Speaker, I deputize Senator Haji. It seems as if the card is reading based on the place, not on the card, because it's my card that I've put in. Mr. Speaker, it's a very interesting point of order that has been raised by Senator Mutula, who is a member of the Justice and Legal Affairs Committee. And I think it's a matter that you need to actually give us direction on, despite what provisions might be in the standing order, Mr. Speaker. We're in a new dispensation since 2010, the 2010 Constitution. We no longer have an opposition in Parliament. All you have is majority and minority. Not because of the handshake, but because of the constitutional dispensation. And Mr. Speaker, apart from the leadership of the House, who have designated places, not by operation of the standing order, but for the convenience of the House, they have specific places they sit. I would suggest that every other member be allowed to sit freely. I think there's free sitting in the House. It is just that it's become customary that the majority side sits on this side and the minority sits on that side, but there is no provision. And I can see Senator Kaniri, who is the connoisseur of standing orders in this House. He's looking at it. There is no provision, Mr. Speaker, on sitting. It has just become a tradition since the 2013 Parliament and this one. But today, if I go to sit next to Senator Ledama Olekina, I will not have defected to ODM. I'll be exercising my right to sit anywhere in this House, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Cheriot.
Mr. Speaker, this is a very interesting intervention by our good friend Senator Mutula. But the route that my good friend Senator Sakaja wants to take you, I want to warn, is extremely risky. It is risky, Mr. Speaker, because there are many things we do in this Parliament that are not documented in our standing orders. But on many occasions, in previous instances, I've had rulings being made by the speakers seated where you are. And one of the things they've referred to is the traditions of this House, together with the traditions of Parliament. If today we want to vary that, then the question that we'll be opening is, to what extent are we willing to vary these traditions, including dressing, bowing, so many things. It's not that I would mind. As a young person, there are many things that do not make sense to me, given that as young people we like challenging tradition. But then, out of respect for this House and the institution that it portends, I want to warn Mr. Speaker that that is an extremely risky route if you decide to take. So therefore, while giving your ruling, please bear that in mind.
Senator Haneri George.
Mr. Speaker, I thank you. Indeed, before Senator Mutula Kilonzo raised the point of order, he consulted me on what the standing orders say about this particular thing. And I told him that there is no provision for this. But Mr. Speaker, sir, I think the observation made by Senator Cheriot are spot on. Because not everything will be provided in the standing orders, but there's what you call tradition, practice, precedence, custom, and procedure, the normal procedures that we use. And I think, Mr. Speaker, sir, standing order number 1 gives you those powers to make a determination on a matter like this based on precedence. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, I just want to inform the House, yes, there is no provision, but the practice, we must stick to the practice and the precedents that we've set. Thank you, Mr. And the traditions. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Bogisho.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, there is a wall between this side and the other side. We might not see the wall, but it's provided for in the standing orders. Mr. Speaker, before I cross to that side, I must go to the bar and cross to the other side. I'm not allowed to take a shortcut in crossing here. I could easily cross. And so, Mr. Speaker, apart from this problem, which I think we should follow, the Westminster practice is adversarial. And so it means one side against the other. And so I do believe that in tradition, really, we should maintain the sides, the minority side and the majority side. I think we should maintain that. And I think that the chairman of legal affairs did not only break that rule, he also broke the normal tradition of moving motions or giving notice of motions, because I think that should also be done procedurally. So, Mr. Speaker, I think he should quickly apologize to the House and move over to this side and move his motion. Thank you very much.
Point of order. I have not made that ruling, so you're not going to make a ruling on behalf of the Speaker. You're out of order. Senator Sakaja.
Mr. Speaker, I'm not speaking twice, but was it in order really because one of the members who stood said it's the route I am taking. There is no route I am taking. I'm just saying my observation. And it is not right to refer us to a Westminster model while we're in a presidential model. In fact, in Congress, there are no sides. Finally, Mr. Speaker, as you give us your considered ruling, kindly advise us. We have 67 senators today. Given what is happening in this country and the spirit of the handshake and whatnot, we might find in the next election 60 in one party. Will they all squeeze on one side, or will they sit anywhere, Mr. Speaker? Will you consider that as you give us your ruling?
Senator Omogeni.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I just wanted the House, those who sit on the other side, Mr. Speaker, to note that Cherugei is the chair of Legal Affairs Committee. And Mr. Speaker, all the legal brains are on this side. So, Mr. Speaker, it's for convenience.
Point of order. Point of order, Senator Omogeni. You are out of order. All senators have brains. I don't know that they're legal or not, but I think you are out of order.
Mr. Speaker, you know, we have 3 senior counsels in the House, and they all sit on this side. So, Mr. Speaker, for purposes of quicker consultation, Senator Cherugei, I think, has found it more convenient to sit on this side. So, since the standing orders, Mr. Speaker, are silent on this issue, for purposes of giving comfort to the Chair of Legal Affairs, so that he can consult quickly among senior counsels, you should rule. You should rule, Mr. Speaker, that he has not committed any breach of the standing orders by choosing to sit closer to where senior counsels sit. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Professor Ongeri.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Let me also weigh on this matter. I think we should take this as a serious business, that under normal circumstances, when you cross the floor, you have indeed crossed the floor. In former traditions, it would then require you to do certain traditions to resign. But I would have expected by now that Senator Samson Cherengei would have sensed the mood and quietly crossed over to the other side so he can be able to prosecute his agenda or his motion. Obviously, it's on the wrong side. And what I would have expected him to do, by now he would have politely, quietly, while the debate is on, seeking your ruling, that he would have been on that side so he can move this motion properly. And I think there is so much that goes into it that, Mr. Speaker, you take time and pain to walk through there and bow to the mess before you resume your seat. And surely a motion being moved by the government side, because we are not in government, we are in opposition. That's obvious. And therefore, it should be moved from the other side. But that does not preclude us.
And Senator Cherugei is moving the report as a chair of legal committee, not as a government. And therefore, he's at liberty to move from wherever he wants. Thank you.
I want to tell minority side I'm a rare brain. That is why you should have me on the other side also. Mr. Speaker, sir, I beg to move notice of motion that aware.
What's your point of order? You're not on record. Senator Tanariva.
Mr. Speaker, sir, is the senator who is moving the motion in order when he was crossing from the other side to this side. I need your guidance. I thought when he was moving to this side, he was to move out and
no, he didn't. Order
down.
member. He didn't just cross. He passed through the other side, and therefore I think let us give him time to present his motion. What's your point of order, Senator?
Thank you for giving me a chance because I raised my point of order earlier. Mr. Speaker, this is a house of traditions and this is a house of order.
I hope you are not challenging my ruling. Otherwise, you'll be out of order.
I'm not challenging your ruling, but I'm saying that your direction on this particular matter will guide many of us on how we can conduct business in this house. Because if tomorrow I just decide to come and sit where the minority leader is supposed to sit, then I won't have been disorderly, but I will have gone according to your ruling for the day to day. So I think you needed to have given us direction on why.
Order, member. You are challenging the speaker, and I was very clear and explicit. I said the leadership has designated areas, but any other senator is at liberty, there are no standing orders limiting you from giving your direction. And by giving that, I have thought about it seriously as a speaker. Thank you. Point of orders.
Speaker, on the same point, the National Assembly, their seats are clearly designated. You said these seats are designated. They are not. It's possibly because we just sit. But they are not designated like the seats in the National Assembly. Since we're in the same parliament, there should there be that sort of designation? Because what Senator is saying is that she cannot sit where the minority leader sits, not because it is marked, but because that's where he sits. That sort of thing, Mr. Speaker, will help what the good senator was raising. Thank you.
That's not a problem, Honorable Senator. We can physically label them. Although if you sit where you are not supposed to sit, you'll be uncomfortable. I know, but that that shall be done. Senator Cherargei, proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. I beg to give notice of motion that aware that the Senate passed a motion on the review of policy and legislative framework on the fight against corruption by Senator Dr. Isaac Mwaura on 31st May 2018 and referred to the Senate Standing Committee on Justice, Legal Affairs and Human Rights for consideration, appreciating that the duration accorded to the committee to consider the motion is due to lapse on 31st July 2018. Regretting that due to heavy workload and sheer magnitude of the assignment, the committee is yet to conclude its deliberation and tables its report in the House and requires more time to conduct a further and thorough inquiry into the matter. Now, therefore, the Senate resolves to extend the duration by a further period of 30 days to enable it conclude its work and table its report in the House. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Next, Senator Kamar.
Honorable Speaker, I beg to give notice of the following motion that pursuant to Standing Order 246, the report of the Procedure and Rules Committee laid on the table of the House today, Tuesday, 7th August 2016, be approved. Thank you.
Yeah, proceed.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to give notice of the following motion on the establishment of more youth polytechnics at the county level. Mr. Speaker, aware that youth polytechnics, also known as vocational training institutes or village polytechnics, are educational institutions that offer primary and secondary school leavers opportunities to acquire relevant knowledge, especially technical and vocational skills, to increase their employability. Further aware that youth polytechnics provide industrial and entrepreneurial skills training to young people in order to increase employment opportunities, reduce dependency levels, and increase self-reliance among youth. Recalling that in 2005, the Youth Training Department of the then Ministry of Youth Affairs and Sports was established through the Presidential Circular No. 1 of 2005 with a mandate of revitalizing the youth polytechnics countrywide in order to empower youth through provision of accessible, appropriate, and quality training in technical, vocational, industrial, entrepreneurial, and life skills, cognizant that youth polytechnics are a devolved function, persuaded that vocational education and training is a critical aspect of a developing economy, and that it would contribute towards the realization of Vision 2030 and the Big Four agenda, concerned that in Kenya, the number of young people who have completed a primary school education but have not joined secondary schools continues to rise by the day. Further concerned that county governments have not prioritized youth polytechnic establishment despite the polytechnic's capacity to ultimately contribute to both social and economic development. Now, therefore, the Senate calls upon each of the 47 county governments to A, establish youth polytechnics in at least every location within their respective areas of jurisdiction and to revamp the already existing youth polytechnics. B, to develop a structure or guidelines for sensitizing the youth who have completed their primary and secondary school education but have not progressed in education to impress vocational training in order to acquire the necessary skills to join the labor market. Honorable Speaker, I also beg to give notice of the following motion on the establishment of an ad hoc committee to investigate the maize crisis in the country. Mr. Speaker, whereas maize is Kenya's staple food, whose demand and supply is monitored by the government through the strategic grain reserves, and whereas Kenya has been experiencing maize shortage mainly due to the high cost of production, the effects of climate change, and poor management of the strategic grain reserves, noting that maize farmers have called to question the efficiency and capacity of the National Cereals and Produce Board, which is the institution mandated to buy maize from maize farmers to continuously replenish the strategic reserves, to effectively handle and manage maize produce, forcing small-scale farmers to sell their produce to unscrupulous traders at very low prices, cognizant that the NCBB has on many occasions declined to buy maize from farmers, claiming that its stores are full to capacity, and failed to pay the farmers whose produce it has received, thereby exposing them to severe financial problems, concerned that although the government has committed to supporting maize farming in Kenya in order to ensure Kenya's food security, little has been done to improve the efficiency of NCPB and protect the maize farmers from exploitation, aware that the government, during periods of maize shortage, grants waivers to enable importation of maize duty-free, concerned that the last duty-free window, which was scheduled to terminate in October 2017, was not terminated, and the deliveries continued until late December 2017, leading to overstocking of most NCBB stores, with no clarity as to where the maize deliveries came from, concerned that failure to properly manage the maize situation in Kenya could lead to the disillusionment of farmers, famine, civil strife, and economic sabotage. Now, therefore, the Senate resolves to establish an ad hoc committee to inquire into the maize crisis in the country and report the same to Senate within 60 days after the adoption of this motion on 1, why farmers who have delivered their produce to NCBB have not been paid to date. 2, the quantity of duty-free maize imported into the country during the duty-free window, which was to end in October 2017, and why the period was extended. 3, the challenges facing the maize farmers and the NCBB, and make recommendations on how to resolve the challenges. 4, the maize received by the NCBB for the 2017-2018 season to establish the suppliers. And 5, the criteria for identification of millers and business persons involved in the importation of maize to the country. And further, that the following senators form the membership for the ad hoc committee. 1, Senator Margaret Kamar, Senator Moses Wetangula, who are the co-sponsors of the motion, Senator Samson Cherargei, Senator Dr. Christopher Langat, Senator Petronila Were Locorio, Senator Dr. Michael Mbito, and Senator Boniface Kabaka. Thank you.
Next order.
Order number 7, statements.
Senator Wambua.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to make a statement pursuant to Standing Order number 46-2A on an accident that happened over the weekend in Mwingi of Kitui County. Mr. Speaker, sir, I wish to draw the attention of the Senate to a grisly road accident that happened in Mwingi Central constituency of Kitui County on Saturday, August 4th, 2018. The accident, Mr. Speaker and honorable members, claimed the lives of 10 pupils of St. Gabriel Boarding Primary School in Mwingi Town. The pupils, accompanied by 3 teachers and the school matron, had gone on a trip to Mombasa and were barely 3 kilometers back home when the accident happened. Mr. Speaker, before I proceed, may I kindly request honorable members to rise and observe a minute's silence in honor of the departed innocent souls. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I wish to condole with the families of the children we lost and pray that God will continue to give those families the strength they so much need to deal with the loss. To the children who were injured in the accident, I wish them a quick recovery, and to the entire school community, may God's grace be sufficient for them as they try to come to terms with this most traumatizing accident. Mr. Speaker, as we mourn the innocent children whose lives are being cut short so early, the three things, Mr. Speaker, stand out, and which things require the immediate attention of this House and of the government. Mr. Speaker, night travel, and especially long-distance night travel, is indeed a very dangerous adventure. It is even more dangerous for school children using school transport in institutions where drivers of school buses are only accustomed to driving short distances. The distance from Mwingi to Mombasa is approximately 600 kilometers, and any driver will be fatigued to drive such a long distance. These deaths, Mr. Speaker, must be an eye-opener to the relative authorities to strictly enforce a ban on night travel for school children. There is absolutely no benefit in transporting school children at night. Night travel, Mr. Speaker, for school children can and must be avoided, and with it we shall have avoided a lot of evil, including accidents. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, the Nairobi-Garissa Road, especially the section between Kanyonyo and Gune, is dangerously narrow, and its shoulders have been worn out.
Senator Cherargei, what is your intervention? Oh, you are not aware? Okay. You do so. Proceed, Senator.
Ongoing attempts, Mr. Speaker, to repair the shoulders leave a lot to be desired because the contractors are patching up the worn-out shoulders using maram, making the road too dusty and even more dangerous for oncoming traffic moving in either direction. I call on the Roads Committee of this House, Mr. Speaker, in which I sit, and engineers from the Kenya National Highways Authority to prioritize a visit to this section of the road to recommend and enforce appropriate action to avert further imminent loss of lives. The section where the Saturday grisly accident occurred, Mr. Speaker, is so narrow and made even worse by molds of maram recklessly heaped by the roadside, making it difficult for drivers to navigate through a narrow lane leading into an even narrower bridge at Tia River. Thirdly, Mr. Speaker, is the state of Mwingi Level 4 Hospital, where the survivors of this accident were taken. The hospital, Mr. Speaker, does not serve only the people of Mwingi or Kitui County. That facility serves people all the way from Matu to Garissa and beyond, especially victims of road accidents. Mr. Speaker, the facility does not have a trauma center, rendering it unable to deal with critical cases. 6 of the children who suffered severe injuries following the Saturday night accident could not be attended to at the hospital. They were referred to Kenyatta National Hospital, which is about 200 kilometers away. 2 of them died while being transferred to KNH. Mr. Speaker, if the facility was properly equipped with a trauma center, perhaps, just perhaps, we could have saved those 2 children. I want to appeal to the Ministry of Health and the Department of Health in the County Government of Kitui to collaborate and establish a trauma center at the Mwingi Level 4 Hospital to effectively deal with critical cases at this facility. Mr. Speaker, I want to report to this House that on Thursday this week, there will be a requiem mass for all the 10 children that died before the bodies are released to their families for burial. In this case, Mr. Speaker, I want to appeal to this House to see what help can be extended, especially to these families. And these children don't just come from Kitui County. We have children from as far as Nakuru. We have children from Embu. We have children from Tharaka Nithi. And an assistance given to these families, Mr. Speaker, by this House in preparing for the burial of these children will be most appreciated. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Senator. Maybe just as a matter of procedure, though we are dealing with a tragedy, but it's normally the Speaker to ask the House to rise to observe a 1-minute silence. But because of that, I didn't want to interfere. But I thought I should mention it that in future, let's observe procedure. Senator Kilonzo Mutula Jr.
Speaker, I must say I was impressed that you could rise on somebody else's orders. Although I'm unprecedented, and Senator Haniri said in the last 26 years he has not seen anything of the sort, I must say that I'm living in good times. Senator Cheregai was on this side, and Speaker, you stood up on the orders of a senator. Mr. Speaker, this incident is terrible to the extent that it is clear that the children didn't have safety belts. Some lost their heads. They had to look for jaws on site, eyes, many things. That children of the poor had to be transported all the way to KNH. If these were children from a private school, most likely they would end up in Nairobi Hospital or Aga Khan or any other place. Or maybe they would have, a chopper would have gone to receive them. Every time, Mr. Speaker, we discuss anything concerning the poor in this country, there's always a sad story. When will this end? And how will it end? Where will we be? That the children of the poor can die like this, some in class, most of them in class 8. The parents are traumatized. Kitui is, it's the other side of the world. They are really suffering. I can only pass my condolences to my colleague, Wambua, but to say that even the status of health in this country, Committee of Health here, every time some of these things happen, we give credence to the people who say the function of health should go to national government. Because we have not interrogated this function, although we take pride in saying 93% of it is devolved. Mr. Speaker, sometimes I think that we should, turn back and go back like Saul to Damascus, or do we make this work? Mr. Speaker, my condolences to those families, but it's a real tragedy. Thank you.
Senator Haji Farhia.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. I also wish to join my colleagues in condoning with their family, especially the mothers of those children. Only a mother knows the pain another mother will go through. That I can tell you that's a very, very painful to lose a child. Mr. Speaker, sir, we were told that there were 1 matron, 3 teachers, and a driver. And then there is also a chain of police officers who are along the way in terms of roadblocks or on the side road. I think each and every person had a responsibility to ensure the safety of those children. 11 a.m. 11 p.m. is not like 11 a.m. during the day. It's at night. And if I am not wrong, I think there was a directive by Ministry of Education stopping travel at night by school bus. Why have all these people not followed that procedure? And as a result, lives have been lost. So I think from the matron, because in terms of the pecking orders, I think the driver is low in terms of if you compare a teacher who was in charge of a trip and all that. If those teachers have not perished, then I think they also need to be brought to book. I also believe that the matron should also be brought to book. And I think also a record should be kept. I'm sure the police know who is supposed to be in roadblocks along that route that deals children from 6 p.m. because I thought they were not supposed to travel from 6 p.m. From 6 p.m., anybody who was any police officer who is supposed to ensure that the law is followed, who did not, then I think that person also needs to be brought to book, because they need to be held to an account, because they are the custodians of the law in this country. Mr. Speaker, sir, like everybody else has said, we are talking about a road that is partially damaged in the county of Wajir, where I come from. There is even no road. It's just a maram road everywhere. There is no tarmac from Garissa up to the county headquarters of where I come from. So I think if we are going to ask the Ministry of Transport in terms of to be accountable, then I think it should also be extended to other counties that have no tarmac road whatsoever, other than a small stretch that was done by the county government when devolution has started. In a small stretch that is in town, but the rest of Wajir County from Garissa up to all the way to Mandera has absolutely, it's just a maram road, even to the county headquarters. So I think in this country, there is need for equality in terms of how services reach the common wananchi. And I think so that also the dust also goes down. It's also dusty throughout the year. Here we are talking about a small stretch. It is a whole road all the way to the county headquarters of Wajir and Mandera. So I think we need the government needs to be accountable to ensuring that roads are also made better. And of course, understandably, the healthcare also needs to be addressed adequately. I thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity.
Senator George Khaniri.
Mr. Speaker, I thank you for the opportunity. Mr. Speaker, I rise here with a very heavy heart. And at the very onset, I want to say that on my own behalf and on behalf of my family, and the people of Vihiga, I want to convey my deepest condolences to the affected families who lost their loved ones, and also take this opportunity to wish those who are recovering in Mwingi Level 4 Hospital and Kenyatta Hospital a quick recovery. Mr. Speaker, this was an extremely sad incident affecting the most vulnerable, our children. We lost young lives, very promising young lives. And I was watching news last night, and I think the children who had taken that trip, if what we watched on the news is anything to go by, must be the brightest. They must have picked the brightest of the pupils in that school. So we've lost very, very brilliant, promising lives in this bad incident that happened on Saturday night. But Mr. Speaker, this culture that we have developed as a country of waiting for a disaster to happen, then we start lamenting, start now pointing fingers, must just come to an end. I think we must be proactive and take action. For example, on this particular issue, I think there was a government policy that no public buses are allowed to travel in the night. And I believe school buses are part of public buses and public transport. What happened to the enforcers of this particular policy, Mr. Speaker? It is so sad that we always wait for something to happen, then we start lamenting and pointing fingers when we could have corrected these issues before they actually occur. I just want to urge the government to do two things. Number one, ensure that the culprits are brought to book. Anybody who caused this to happen, either through omission or commission, must pay for it, must be brought to book. Number two, the government must stand with the families that have lost their children and the families of those who are admitted in hospital to help them alleviate the expenses that would come with such things. I want to wish those in hospital a quick recovery and just tell the parents of these children that we are praying for them, and we hope that God will give them the strength to endure this terrible loss. And we pray that the same Almighty God will rest the souls of the young pupils in eternal peace.
Senator Halake Abshiro.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to add my voice of condolences for the loss we as a country suffered, losing 10 children. But I also want to commend you for not making this about yourself and standing in honor of the children as opposed to the hierarchies and other considerations. We're very proud of you. Now, going back to the children, Mr. Speaker, I worked most of my life scooping dead bodies on Mombasa Road. The highest killer in this country after certain communicable diseases is our roads. I hope that the death of our children, the 10 of them, and this is only not the first time, will serve to show that a more sustainable solution needs to be found. I'm sorry, Mr. Speaker, I'm a bit emotional because we cannot just be standing here year after year, day after day, month after month, just speaking about these things and scooping bodies of lifeless young children. And nothing seems to be done. We have close to 4,000 deaths on our roads every year, Mr. Speaker. Reports exist from disaster organizations and even from government agencies that are mandated with disasters that trauma centers need to be built in blind spots and hot spots that have been killer areas in our country. Mombasa Road is one of them. Salga area is one of them. And nobody seems to want to do anything about these things. Bringing the matron to book, I think, is okay, but really we need to find a more lasting solution to the whole issue of the killer roads on which we all drive. But more importantly, the people that suffer disproportionate and untold suffering are the poor, as has been said by other colleagues. Mr. Speaker, this is a very sad situation where every time our systems are broken, we have people, policemen on the roads, but nobody is doing their work. We have teachers that have orders but don't enforce them. And I wonder, what is the obligation of us as leaders to protect our children and our country? Because we're facing a broken system, be it in education, be it in health, be it in security, you name it, and people don't seem. Who is to put people to account, and what is the role of leadership? What's the role of this House in this matter and others like it? Mr. Speaker, just sitting here, and as a mother, I feel very emotional. Of course, we've lost children on our roads always, but especially this time, an age where we're looking at taming corruption, we're looking at fixing our systems. Is it just smoke screen where we want to just talk so that we get votes, or are we seriously wanting to take the obligation to protect our children on these roads? Is it for lack of goodwill, or is it for lack of resources? What is the problem? Because we will go, we will scoop these dead bodies, we'll come back and sit here, and again stand in silence and mourn them. These children, really something must be done, and more sustainable solutions must be sought. And the obligation of leadership, especially the leadership of this House, which is more and more showing the direction for this country, we need to do something. And I hope that you direct some sort of inquiry, or you commit some of these things to some of the committees of this Senate, which has of late doing very good job to really put people to account, because we need to move beyond just mourning and scooping the lifeless bodies of our children to really taking action and really taking the obligation of leadership to protect those that are dependent on us, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I know we have a lot of problems, but I think we just need to make sure that we are not just mourning and offering condolences on our behalf and on behalf of the children of our families and of our constituents, but we must take seriously this issue and see what it is we can do as this House, in addition to some of the things that Senator Wambua has requested we do. But we need to look at sustainable ways in which this House will exercise its representation role, will exercise its oversight role, and will exercise its moral authority and political responsibility to deal with this once and for all, Mr. Speaker. I thank you for the opportunity, and once again, I'd like to reiterate my own condolences to the families and pray for the quick recovery of the children that are in hospital. I know, again, even as they're in hospital, Mr. Speaker, they're not probably getting the best services they can. Out of this, we're going to have people who will be maimed, people whose lives will be altered for the rest of their lives at an early stage, and people who probably will not have the social protection that they'll need to make the best of their lives going forward. Is this the kind of situation we want as leaders to preside over? We want as leaders to just, call ourselves leaders when the obligation of leadership, the responsibility of leadership rests with us to ensure this does not happen again. Mr. Speaker, I thank you, and once more, I wish the children, the parents, the mothers and fathers, and the children who are in hospital a quick recovery. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. I can see there's a lot of interest, so limit to 3 minutes. Senator Locorio Petronila.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to express my sympathy and consolation to the families and the school where we lost 10 children in a road accident. Mr. Speaker, sir, there was a law that was passed that school buses should not travel beyond 6 p.m. This bus had an accident at 11 p.m. So the roads where this bus passed had policemen, had parents, had members of the public, and nobody saw it fit to stop the bus and say, you are floating a law, and stop it. So even as Kenyans, we need to take responsibility. The era of looking aside when somebody's child is making a mistake should stop. And we should all take responsibility for whatever is happening in this country. These accidents made the Ministry of Education decide that all school buses should be painted yellow, and a certain yellow that is supposed to reflect on the road at night. This bus was painted yellow. Does that mean that we need to do something more to school buses other than the color yellow? Do we need the reflector that goes around on trailers to be put now on these school buses? That's something that the Ministry of Education needs to look at. We should also have 2 drivers per bus. That particular rule is not followed by schools. I don't even know if that rule is there, so that if a driver is exhausted, another driver will come and take over when these buses are taking our children out. The drivers for schools should also have some special qualification other than just a driver's license. They should have a particular number of years of experience other than just having a driver's license and having driven for 2 years. There must be a record of in which schools have they worked as drivers. And then also, all these laws, I'm sure some of these schools have them. So the issue is on enforcement. Who has the responsibility to enforce some of these rules in our schools? Is it the quality assurance inspectors of schools? And if so, are they not doing their job? Who should take responsibility? So even as we debate this and talk about this and blame the roads, blame the matrons, blame the teachers for not having ensured those children have seat belts, how do we move from here so that we do not have a repeat of this? And Mr. Speaker, if this statement can be taken to the relevant committee so that these issues are looked into. It's not interesting to lose 10 innocent children. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Hagura Godana.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'd like, on my own behalf and on behalf of the people of Marsabit County, to send my sincere condolences to the affected families. And Mr. Speaker, in fact, from what I got from the news, a family lost 2 children. 2 school-going children who are not sick, who have gone for a trip, and I think that is double tragedy for that particular family. And as my colleagues have said, I think something has to be done about law enforcement. We don't lack laws. What we lack is enforcement. And it's high time our police officers on the road get serious. Concerning what Senator Wambua said about that road, I know that road was done about 22 years ago, because when I graduated from the university, that's the first road I was taken for training when it was being tarmacked. That's a long time. It needs to have been redone. That is actually the gateway to the whole of Northeastern. It's only through that road that you can go to Garissa, Wajir, and Mandera, and parts of Tana River. And maybe there's something about that road. For those who have traveled on that road, the surface is not black like any other road. It looks patchy. I'd like to say that actually there was something to do with even the material which was used for sealing that road. By then I was just a trainee student, graduate engineer by then, but I know by the time I left there, they were trying actually the white chippings from Nguni on that road. And that is maybe why it has been coming off. And this is something 22 years down the line. That is not even a proper tarmac, it was a sealing, what we call sealed roads, where you just have bitumen on top of the base, then you just put the chippings. It's not asphalt concrete what we have now. So it should have been reconstructed, because the maximum life would have been 10 or 15 years. Now it's 22 years. So I think Kenya has questions to answer. As a member of the Roads Committee, as the Vice Chair of the Roads Committee, I take that request from Senator Wambua, who is also a member of the committee, so that we visit that road, and Kenya has to tell us why that road has not been recarpeted, because it should have been reconstructed maybe some 7 years ago. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Okay, honorable senators, I have a brief communication. I would like to acknowledge the presence in the public gallery this afternoon of visiting students and teachers from Kapsokwany Adventist Primary School, Bungoma County. In our usual tradition of receiving and welcoming visitors to Parliament, I extend a warm welcome to them, and on behalf of the Senate and on my own behalf, wish them a fruitful visit. I thank you. I would also like to acknowledge the presence in the public gallery this afternoon of visiting students and teachers from Chamaje Secondary School, Nandi County. And in our usual tradition of receiving and welcoming visitors to Parliament, I extend a warm welcome to them, and on my own behalf and of Senate, I wish them a fruitful visit. I thank you. Senator Wangere Samson.
Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to pass my condolences on behalf of my family, the Kisii County, to the county of Kitui and the people of Kitui County, for this untimely death of very young, dedicated future leaders of our nation. I watched that clip last night. It was a painful moment when you walk through the motion of the parents who have lost their young ones in that accident without any notification at all. In fact, as I sat there as a professional, I almost wondered the amount of psychological trauma that they must have gone through, even both the teachers and the parents and the community and the people around. And I think it's quite obvious that that road is a major trunk road connecting many counties all the way to Mombasa. And at the time when I was the Minister for Health, such a situation arose when we found out that Nakuru, Kericho, Kisii, Tarime Road was full of road accidents, the road traffic accidents, involving a lot of loss of life. And we made a conscious decision to create a trauma center, a referral center at the Kericho Hospital and also at Kisii Hospital. I would expect that the Ministry of Health, alongside with the government of Kitui government, should now be able to erect one of the best state-of-the-art hospital at Mwingi, so that it can cater at Mwingi or wherever the level 4 hospital is, and get it to level 5, and if possible, level 6, because we can see that whereas this is one accident, we expect many other more accidents, God forbid, to happen along that road, that we need now to take a proactive action against this kind of vice, and also to advise our teachers and our students that when they have gone to a retreat in any place, that they should consider the time of travel and the hour of travel. Because traveling at that long distance, there is mental fatigue at any given level. And given whether it's a driver, whether even the people, passengers themselves, there's a natural wear and tear and the fatigue that you find. And for them to be replenished, I think they should measure the time when they are able to move and not move. And I think this is one such a situation that we see. Mr. Speaker, I don't want to dwell on this matter, but this is a matter that now requires national attention. And I expected at the time when the national government
Senator Mary Yane.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for also giving me a chance to condole on behalf of my family and on behalf of the people of Kajiado with the families and the county of Kitui for the suffering of losing their loved ones. I want to point out 3 things in this particular incident. As many of my colleagues have just said, we lost quite a number of people through road accidents. Not only that particular Mombasa road, not only that one, not only many other major roads, but even within the small minor roads in our counties. Every other day in parts of this country, we are burying people who are road accident victims. And therefore, I want to point out 2 things. We are not lacking policies. What we are lacking is the implementation and enforcement of these policies. If there are policies stating that public vehicles should not be transporting children and people at night, then it should be enforced. And those ones who failed to enforce should be brought to book. Secondly, the issue of lorries and trucks. Many of these drivers, even ourselves, when we are traveling in our counties, we try to avoid these big trucks which are being driven carelessly. So Kenha plus NTSA should look into their system, tighten up their system, and also monitoring these kind of the roads. They should be monitored where there are damages they should ratify so that at least we can have safety in our country. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Olekina.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, sir, on the onset, I'd like to convey my deepest condolences to the family on behalf of the people of Narok, my family, and on myself. I know the people of Kitui have really suffered. And Mr. Speaker, sir, those kids did not deserve to die. But Mr. Speaker, sir, as we think about this sad moment, it gives us an opportunity to try and see what we can do within our powers to be able to ensure that this does not happen again. Mr. Speaker, sir, I know a few of my colleagues have spoken to, or rather suggested that there is a law that prohibits night travel, or there is a policy. Mr. Speaker, sir, I remember that in January this year, there was a decision by the High Court in Nakuru that found that the NTSA Act, which I've also had an opportunity to look at, does not have any provision that restrict night travel. So, Mr. Speaker, sir, I know yesterday the governor of Machakos issued a directive banning all night travels and imposing a fine. Mr. Speaker, sir, I want to really question that anytime we do anything, we have to do it and it has to be backed by law. If indeed there is a law that stipulates that bans night travel, it should be listed or in the laws of Kenya, and it should actually be in the NTSC Act. Mr. Speaker, sir, I would caution the governor of Machakos because you cannot ban night travel and impose a fine of 50,000 shillings. I think it will give us an opportunity in this House to amend the NTSA Act and ensure that everything we do is protected by the law. Because, Mr. Speaker, sir, if governors will just wake up and say there is a law, you break it, you pay 50,000, then I don't know what we'll be doing in this House. So, Mr. Speaker, sir, I would like us to take this opportunity, look at the NTSA Act, amend it, and add a provision that focuses on safety. I know the Ministry of Education had issued a policy, but that policy can be more effective. We are a country which is governed by the rule of law. So I think it gives us now, and I hope that my brother from Kitui would actually take this opportunity to introduce amendments to this NTSA Act, provide those provision of security so that it is clear. Because this is a country where people go to court, and they are rightful to do so. So when you go to court, you should be able to present a case, because I know people will go to court tomorrow. I think we may need to come up with better policies that encourages safety. I like what my sister, Senator Petronina Were, had suggested, that when these students are traveling at night, it should have at least, if they have to travel at night, they should have at least 2 drivers. Because, Mr. Speaker, sir, one of the problems we have in our roads, which I've observed, having lived outside the country, is that we have either encroached so much into our roads reserved to a point where there are no rest areas. Very few rest areas are there. So this is an opportunity for us to consider and look at all our roads network. Introduce rest areas. I thank you, Mr. Speaker. So I see my time is over.
Senator Wario Kolia Juma.
Asante Bwana Spika kwa kunipatia nafasi hii. Bwana Spika, ninatoa rambi zangu za dhati kwa niaba yangu, niaba ya familia yangu na watu wa Tana River County kwa ajali iliyotokea ambayo vijana walipoteza maisha yao. Kwa hakika, Bwana Spika, barabara ambayo inatoka Mwingi na kuelekea ni barabara ambayo inaunganisha sehemu yangu ya Tana River na sehemu ya Garissa pia. Barabara hiyo ndio barabara ambayo mimi ninasafiria kila siku wakati ninaelekea Tana River County. Kwa hakika barabara hiyo iko katika hali ya kusikitisha sana, hasa wakati unatoka sehemu ya Nguni na kuelekea Bangali. Hapo sehemu hiyo inakaa mbaya zaidi, na kwa hakika wakati mwingi ajali zinatokea sehemu hizo. Vijana wengi wanatembea na kwenda katika kujionea mambo halisi vile yalivyo katika sehemu tofauti tofauti, na safari hiyo yao ni safari ya masomo, ni safari ya kwenda kujionea. Na wakati mwingi unapoangalia sehemu hii ya bunge, vijana wengi wamekuja na wengine wengi wanaendelea kuja, na kwa hakika kuna vijana wa Tana River pia wanatoka kupitia barabara hiyo, na saa hii wanaelekea pande hii ya bunge. Bwana Spika, sehemu hiyo kwa hakika sio sehemu ambayo ingefaa hata magari kupita. Ni wakati halisi sasa wale wanayohusika na barabara hiyo waende kuangalia na waweze kurekebisha, kwa sababu tunaweza kuzungumza mambo ya ajali ambayo saa hii tayari inauma watu wako hospitalini, vijana wako hospitalini, tena hasa vijana ambao hawastahili kupata ajali kama hiyo, vijana ya watu maskini, vijana ambayo ni tumaini yetu kwa siku zijazo. Wanakuja wanapata ajali na familia moja inapoteza vijana wawili. Bwana Spika, hiyo ni uchungu sana, na kwa hakika haya ni mambo ambayo tunaweza kuepukana nayo, kwa sababu maji yakimwagika hayazoleki tena. Ajali ikitendeka imetendeka. Ningependa kupitia seneta rafiki yangu
Senator Gertrude Musuruve.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I want to thank you so very much for giving me an opportunity to actually condole with the families that have lost their loved ones. And on behalf of my family and myself, Mr. Speaker, I pass my condolences. And I want to say, Mr. Speaker, sir, it is really, really unfortunate that these children were almost reaching the end of the journey, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, when you go to the well, you fetch water, and then when you just reach at the doorstep, the pot breaks. It is very painful, Mr. Speaker, because that is exactly what happened. These children were almost reaching their destination. In some mainstream media, one media said they were 3 kilometers away from their destination. Another mainstream media said it was 2 kilometers away from their destination. Mr. Speaker, that tells that they were just near, and they were just there, Mr. Speaker. It is really, really painful that they were not able to reach their destination, Mr. Speaker. And I even remember so vividly, like just now, when I saw a man on electronic media saying that he had actually spoken to his daughter, and his daughter even confirmed that she had improved to position 10. And the father was really waiting to, to meet the daughter and really commend her for the performance, Mr. Speaker. I am telling you, Mr. Speaker, it's so painful that 10 students died. These are 10 leaders who died. There are 10 senators. There are 10 dignitaries that we don't know what they would have become, Mr. Speaker, in future. It is unfortunate that their life had to come to a stop at that particular time, Mr. Speaker. And I want to say, Mr. Speaker, that I'm really feeling deeply for the parents of these children, because they're going through a psychological trauma, Mr. Speaker, and they really need psychosocial support, Mr. Speaker. And they need, Mr. Speaker, for even centers to be put in place to give psychosocial support for parents or people who lose their loved ones just abruptly like this, Mr. Speaker, especially through road accidents, Mr. Speaker. These are children who are never sick at all. These are families, they were not sick, but the cruel hand of death took them away in that a terrible way. Mr. Speaker, and I want to say also, there's need for schools to ensure that they implement that provision of tours and travels being during the day, Mr. Speaker. Because you can imagine, Mr.
Senator Langat Christopher.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to condole deeply with the parents, the families that were affected by this particular demise of their children. In as much as we can commend the Ministry of Education policies that are in place now, that can, if implemented, they can provide a lot of safeguard to these children. Want to say that the greatest problem, Mr. Speaker, in our country is enforcement of the policies and the regulations that are there. We are always on the reactive part of it, where every now and then we must react. This is the time when the traffics are very active, but after 2 weeks or so, it becomes business as usual. So we want to ask anybody concerned on our road traffic and so forth to enforce the road safety regulations throughout, and TSA, the police, and everybody else. Otherwise, we shall not keep on lamenting about things that can be solved, Mr. Speaker, that can be prevented if enforcement department does their work. So it was quite unfortunate. We've lost souls and lives, and indeed I condole with the families, Mr. Speaker. Thank you very much.
Senator Kinezani.
Asante sana bwana mzungumzishi kwa nafasi hii. Pia mimi ningependa kwanza kuambia pole wale ambao walipoteza wapendwa wao, haswa ile familia ambayo tuliona katika magazeti ambao wamepoteza watahiniwa wawili ambao walikuwa wafanya mitihani mwaka huu. Bwana Spika, ni jambo la huzuni, lakini si jambo jipya. Na ni jambo ambalo limezungumzwa mara nyingi, lakini hakuja kuwa na jawabu ambalo limeweza kuwekwa na kwa kufanikisha kwamba ajali hizi zisifanyike. Wengi wamezungumza juu ya sera ambayo ni muhimu, na sera zipo. Sera moja ya muhimu ambayo ilikuwa imewekwa ni kwamba kama kuna basi ambayo inapeleka wanafunzi mahali fulani, lazima iendeshe baina ya masaa fulani, ambapo haitakani ipite usiku. Jambo la pili ambalo ni muhimu ni kwamba kama kuna driver moja ambaye anaendesha hiyo basi, akichoka awe na mwenzake. Wengi watauliza, mimi nilijiuliza, kwani basi hino ama driver huyu hangeweza kupumzika, ama hakukuwa na nafasi nyingine ama mpangilio mwingine ambao ulikuwa umewekwa kuhakikisha hawa wanafunzi pengine wangeweza kusimama. Kwa sababu inasemekana ajali ilifanyika kwa sababu ilikuwa ni usiku. Ajali ilifanyika kwa sababu mtu alikuwa ameacha barabara ambapo kulikuwa na kama kilima. Kwa hivyo yeye hakuweza kuona. Na wengi wetu ambao tumekuwa katika barabara, mara nyingi tukifika lazima tunashukuru Mungu mpaka tunastajabu tumefika kwa salama. Kwa sababu hata ukifika bila ajali ni maajabu. Mara itakuwa ni wale ambao wanaendesha mizigo mikubwa katika barabara, mtu amejiingiza katika barabara, ameingia kona, hajaangalia ama hajaangalia usalama wa wenzake. Bwana Spika, nafikiri ni muhimu sana, na nafikiri tukiendelea kuzungumza tukisema kila wakati kwamba tuangalie sera ambazo tumeziweka, tunaziangalia. Nilisikia kwamba hizi sera zitaangaliwa kuhakikisha kwamba zimefuatwa, lakini wale ambao hawajafuata sera, kwa sababu nafikiria huyu ambaye alikuwa driver saa hizi amepelekwa kortini na akifungiwa itakuwa yeye ni mtu mmoja, driver mmoja. Lakini sera ambazo zimewekwa, kwa nini hizi sera zivunjwe? Na kama zimevunjwa, kwa nini ziendelee kuwekwa? Lazima tujiulize na tuweke katika hali ya kuhakikisha kwamba mambo kama hayo yafanyike. Kama ni sera imewekwa, lazima sera ifuatwe. Na mtu mwingine ambaye hatafuata hiyo sera itakuwa shida. Bwana mzungumzishi, kuna sera nyingi ambazo zinawekwa. Kwa mfano kwamba mabasi ya skuli yatawekwa rangi moja. Watu wanazungumza habari ya zile ambazo wanafunzi wanavaa za kuonesha kwamba wanatoka skuli hino ama skuli ile nyingine, zile mavazi ambayo wanaweka. Lakini kwa muda mwingi tukizungumza juu ya sera peke yake bila kuhakikisha kwamba sera zimekwa, nafikiri tutapata shida. Na nafikiri tena katika historia ya Kenya bado tumeingia katika shida kwa sababu ya ajali kubwa ambapo sera hazikuwekwa.
Senator Milgo Chepkorir.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this chance to also condole with the parents and the people of Kitui. And on behalf of my county, Bomet County, I wish to really give condolences to the bereaved families. Mr. Speaker, sir, I looked at the students that passed on yesterday. I saw their photographs with a lot of pain. Mr. Speaker, sir, you'll realize that many of those kids, they were the top cream of that particular school, and therefore that school lost engineers, as somebody has pointed out, lost doctors, and lost very many other special people that would have been able to have in the future. Mr. Speaker, sir, the Ministry of Education has put in place a rule that by 6, no school pass or students should be carried. However, I'm sure the people concerned did not, in this case, take strict implementation of this particular policy. And that is why of late we are realizing that there are passes that are still traveling even past 11. It is unfortunate that we lost these particular kids at 11 p.m. I'm sure that time even visibility in the roads was quite very dim. And even if there were 2 drivers, Mr. Speaker, I'm sure any one of them would not even have been able to negotiate the big lump of soil that was on the road. Mr. Speaker, sir, I'm sure there is somebody in the Ministry of Education that is sleeping on the job, and that is why this rule has been left to die. Mr. Speaker, right now it is holiday. We go out, we see a lot of school children traveling a lot, and we got to really stamp authority in this particular case to ensure that that policy that has been put in place be followed to the letter. Mr. Speaker, sir, I'm sure even if that particular hospital, the level 4 hospital was working, some of the kids would have been saved. However, it is unfortunate to be informed that an hospital at that particular level even lacked a trauma center. It even lacked medicine. Mr. Speaker, sir, one of the 4 pillars of the Jubilee government is affordable health care. If level 4 hospital does not have the necessary services, how about other hospitals, Mr. Speaker? I think in that particular hospital too, somebody should be able to answer a question, or there are any drugs in that particular hospital, or there are any necessary service, or the people on call to be able to receive such students, and even any other people that could be taken to that particular hospital in case they are injured.
Senator Mwinyi Haji Mohamed.
Asante sana Mheshimiwa Spika kwa kunipa fursa hii kuchangia arifa iliyoletwa na Senator wa Kitui, Mheshimiwa Senator Wambua. Mheshimiwa Spika, kwanza nachukua fursa hii kutoa rambirambi zangu binafsi na za watu wa Mombasa kwa watu wa Kitui kutokana na mkasa huu wa ajali mbaya ambayo imeweza kutokea majuzi. Mheshimiwa Spika, fikra zangu na maombi yangu yote yako kwa familia, hasusan na wale wa familia ya mtu mmoja ambaye alipoteza watoto 2 kutokana na hiyo ajali. Mwenyezi Mungu awaweke mahala pema peponi. Mheshimiwa Spika, swala la ajali barabarani limekuwa ni donda sugu katika nchi yetu ya Kenya. Tumeona hapo nyuma mwezi wa 4 kulikuwa na ajali zilizotokea, watu wengi wakapoteza maisha, na mpaka sasa bado National Transport Association ama NTSA haijafanya jambo lolote kubwa la kuweza kuzuia ajali hizi. Kuna masuala ya TLB, kuna masuala ya maafisa wa polisi wa traffic ambao wanasimama katika kila county kupokea hongo wakati mwingine ili kuruhusu magari ambayo yamebeba abiria kupita kiasi ama yana makosa mengine madogo madogo ya traffic kuwaruhusu kuendelea na safari. Mheshimiwa Spika, haya yote yanaweza kukoma iwapo serikali itakaa ngumu na kuhakikisha kwamba sheria za barabarani zinadumishwa. Kwa mfano, haiwezekani gari itoke Mombasa mpaka saa 5 usiku bado inaendelea kutembea. Gari ambayo imebeba watoto wadogo ambao wakati kama wanatakana wamelala waweze kupumzika na safari na machovu mengi. Kwa hiyo Mheshimiwa Spika, nasema kwamba ni lazima serikali ijifunge kibwebwe, hasa hususan huu mwezi wa 8 ambapo kuna safari nyingi za wanafunzi kutoka sehemu moja kwenda sehemu nyingine. Jana nilibahatika kuona magari karibu zaidi ya 10 ya wanafunzi, wengine ni wadogo sana, ambao hawezi kwenda masaa 12 bila kupumzika kwa njia yoyote. Kwa hiyo Mheshimiwa Spika, nachukua fursa hii kuiomba serikali kuhakikisha kwamba sheria za barabarani zinadumishwa, na hiyo inatafanyika iwapo serikali itakaa ngumu na maafisa wa traffic, maafisa wa NTSA kuhakikisha kwamba sheria zinadumishwa. Wacha safari zichelewe, lakini watoto waweze kufika salama katika safari yao. Asante Mheshimiwa Spika.
Finally, Senator Wako Naomi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for allowing me to also give my condolences to the affected families. It is a very sad thing that has happened, and as a mother, I feel sad together with the senator from that county, and this has become a tradition for us. Every holiday, December, August, and April, we lose many of our children, which is a very sad thing. And Mr. Speaker, there is need for us as senators to come up and speak with one voice so that NTSA can put proper measures in place to provide safety on the road. There is also need for the drivers not to be overworked, because most of the time we save money and we lose lives. So it is good for us to consider, to recommend that all the schools have 2 drivers when they go for these long journeys. There is also need for us to say no to night travels. Many of us get excited when we travel during the night. We think that we save money and time and everything, but at the end of the day, we are the losers. And so it is very sad that we have lost these students. It is sad that their parents, the entire nation is mourning. And our prayer is that God will encourage and give hope to those who have lost their loved ones. God will comfort the entire nation. And at the same time, we recommend that those students who have survived be given proper attention in terms of medical care, and also so that they can get healing as soon as possible, and counseling sessions be started immediately, because we know that most of them are candidates. As I was reading and going through the papers, Mr. Speaker, sir, many teachers have confessed that those students who have lost their lives are the best students. That is very, very sad, that we have lost our best students on the roads and at that time of the hour. So we should, as senators, stand with the family and also say that drivers we must check properly the people who are driving schools. We must put all measures in place so that our children will be safe. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Masiza Naomi.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity just to condone with the family and to support this particular statement that has been brought in this House pertaining the tragedy that befell our children. Mr. Speaker, I remember my first statement in this House was all about the traffic or rules that are being broken on our road. I remember very well the tragedy that was on Nakuru Road, Nakuru Eldoret Road. And we discussed this in length, and there were rules that were supposed to be followed. And I hope, even with this, there's much that needs to be done. Mr. Speaker, sir, when we look at the young children that have lost life, it is not just a matter of number. Even one life is life that needs actually to be saved. Mr. Speaker, sir, if you look at these young children, when I was also watching the TV, and the parent was expressing how he was looking for the young one, his own child, and he only realized that the child had passed when he went to the mortuary. It was a disbelief. Mr. Speaker, it is the highest time Kenya and other law enforcers take into consideration our roads, put into place the strategies that will save this country from losing lives, that from the young one to the old ones. Mr. Speaker, it is also unfortunate that even if you look on Mombasa Road, we are sitting on a bombshell of deaths. We have the crossings that are not recognized, and this is a highway. And I beg the people who will be looking at this, they need to put into consideration Mombasa Road and what will be done, especially on those zebra crossing and those pilka that are being risen and trying to cut members of the public who are crossing on this road. Because losing life, it is not recovering life. But we need actually to contribute and give solution in that lives can be controlled, and we need to save life other than commenting on lives that have been lost. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Thank you, Honorable Senators. For the convenience of the House, we will defer order number 8 and order number 10. Therefore, move to order number 9, report on the Select Committee on the Solai Dam tragedy. What's your point of order?
Yeah, Mr. Speaker, you had sent a statement to the Committee on Agriculture, and given us strategies, we would like to make the progress reports at this point, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Senator, can we do it tomorrow? We'll list it tomorrow.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Senator Bshiro, what's your point of?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I was just trying to queue early for the Solai report.
Okay, since we're on that order. Next order.
Order number 9, motion, report of the Select Committee on the Solai Dam tragedy.
Okay, Senator Bshiro. Order. Okay, sorry, I was told Senator Gertrude, you had 5 minutes to go. So I'll give you the first chance.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to continue with the debate on the Select Committee on Solai tragedy. Mr. Speaker, it came out clearly from the report that the tragedy was actually man-made. It was deliberate. And sorry, not Mr. Speaker. Sorry, Madam Speaker. The switch off. Madam Speaker, I want to say that it came out clearly from the statement, from the report, that the tragedy was man-made, and it was not an act of God. And it came out also clearly, Madam Speaker, that the Patels deliberately did this because they diverted the water because they were cunning. They had projected that they were going to mint money out of water diversion. And it came out also clearly that there was environmental degradation, that a lot of soil was eroded, Madam Speaker, and we are talking of erosion, immense erosion of the soil, Madam Speaker, from the first layer, second layer, third layer, and this is very serious, Madam Speaker, because this erosion, immense soil erosion, has terrible impact on food security, Madam Speaker, because for the soil to be reinstated again, it may mean maybe transporting soil from another area and bringing it to this area so that people can move on with their lives. Madam Speaker, I want to say that it is very unfortunate that at the moment, people are moving on with their life. Life moves on for everyone else. But Madam Speaker, I want to say that for the families that were involved in this tragedy, life is not moving on. And things are not as usual, Madam Speaker. As you're speaking, Madam Speaker, we have orphans. And when we are talking about this tragedy, there's need for us to ask ourselves as a nation, where will these orphans go? One, they lack the parental support. They lack the mother, they lack the father. They do not have a roof over their head. They do not have food, they do not have shelter. Madam Speaker, this is very painful because these orphans have a long journey in life. And Madam Speaker, if there's going to be any intervention, there's need to see that these orphans are taken care of throughout their journey in life, Madam Speaker. I remember there was such a tragedy, the bomb blast, the American bomb blast. There are some orphans who were affected, and the American upon itself, Madam Speaker, to ensure that these orphans went on with life, and they continued up to they became even prominent people in life, Madam Speaker. They went to colleges, and they're now people who are independent. Madam Speaker, there's need for intervention so that these orphans are not just left hanging somewhere. And Madam Speaker, even as you're talking of orphans, there's one senator who said that there were also PWDs as a result of this event. I remember Senator Milgo stated that. Madam Speaker, it is very painful for one to wake up one morning and realize that he does not have one leg. Or one wakes up one morning and realizes that he doesn't have one eye. Why? Because of something that is man-made. So, Madam Speaker, there's need for intervention, Madam Speaker. When you're talking of PWDs, we need to see how to arrest issues of coming up with PWDs intentionally. Let it be an act of God, but not a man-made act. Madam Speaker, when you're...
Senator Wambua Enoch. Sorry. I think you can just continue, but the next one will be Senator Abshiro. Yeah, thank you. Sorry.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for this opportunity to also add my voice onto this report. Madam Speaker, I will be brief but concise. Madam Speaker, from the report that was tabled by the chairman, Makueni Senator Mutula Kilonzo Jr., Perry Mansuk Kansagara is a person of interest in regard to security operations in Nakuru. Madam Speaker, this is a man who did not just commit an illegality in the construction of the dam, but sought to conceal that illegality by attempting to bribe the very people that were adversely affected by his own action. Madam Speaker, I want to say that the county commissioner, Nakuru County, the Assistant County Commissioner of Subukia, and the Chief of Solai. Those three representatives of the national government in Nakuru County have no business being in office today. These are officers who are charged with the responsibility of being the eyes and the ears of the national government on the ground and protect the interests of the people that they preside over. But these are people, Madam Speaker, who the report says were working in collaboration with the owners of Patel Dam to distribute bribes concealed as compensation to families of those people that were affected by the tragedy. Madam Speaker, for those people, I would dare say that they should have been suspended by now. But even as they're being suspended, and irrespective of what the outcome of the investigation will be, these people are not fit to hold any public office. Madam Speaker, I say this because, unfortunately, the county commissioner is the chair of the security committee of Nakuru County by position that he holds. The committee has recommended further investigations and grilling of the owners of Patel Dam. Madam Speaker, it is unimaginable that the chair of the security committee would constitute part of the team that would investigate this matter. I would urge, Madam Speaker, that once a team is set, then that team cannot be drawn from Nakuru County. That team must be drawn from other enforcement agencies, units, outside of Nakuru County. And the county commissioner, the assistant county commissioner, and the chief must not sit anywhere near that investigating team unless they are appearing as persons of interest. Madam Speaker, I just want to add my voice to the senators who called for justice for the lives that were lost in Solai. Madam Speaker, it will be important that proper and befitting compensation is effected, and there is no amount of compensation that will return lives. But there is a level of compensation that will begin to bring this matter to closure. And for us, Mr. Speaker, Madam Speaker, in this House and for this country, I think what we are looking for now in Solai is closure, especially on the families of the victims of the tragedy. Madam Speaker, with those remarks, I support the report. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Senator Halake Abshiro.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to add my voice to those of my colleagues. To first of all, speak to the issue of, to speak to the issue of Solai Dam. Madam Speaker, it's with great sadness that we keep talking about this innocent loss of lives. And it appears to me that the lives of the poor doesn't really count, because the manner in which young lives or the lives of people that are less privileged in this country just boggles the mind, to be honest, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, but before I go into details, please allow me to congratulate the committee, the select committee, or is it the ad hoc committee on Solai, for a very fine piece of work.
We're very proud as a Senate to be associated with this committee and for their standing for the greater good for this country. And especially there are a few of the committee members who really, against immense pressure and against immense backstage pressure from different sources, that decided that this country is greater than anything that is in their personal interest. And for that reason, I'd like to congratulate the chairperson, Senator Mutula Kilonzo Jr., Senator Kasanga, Senator Sakaja, Senator Malachi, and I forget who the other person is, and Senator Olekina, for really standing up for Kenyans and for what is actually such impunity, and for making this House very proud. Madam Speaker, as I stand here, I'm aware perhaps that not everybody signed the committee report, and I do not wish to cast any aspersions on anybody, but really is just to say that our country is the better for those that really have stood up for the greater good and not gone the way of personal interest that may be or did not get any arm twisting or sacrificed, so to speak. Madam Speaker, having read that report and the observations that were listed in that report are mind-boggling. I've said before informally that the Solai report should really mark a turning point for this country to look very seriously at the things that ail our country and use the recommendations of the Solai report to fix a lot of the issues that ail us. Madam Speaker, the systems and processes of this country, the institutions of this country, the values and culture of this country have gone to the dogs. Madam Speaker, people that are vested with the responsibility to protect the poor or to protect the systems of this country have failed us. We look at, and Perry Mansuk, who is the owner of Solai, represents a lot of these faceless people that have brought impunity to this country. When somebody, a private investor, dams a whole river and becomes the sole giver of water to the residents of an entire zone or region, what does that say about our institutions? What does that say about our country? And we have a president, we have the judiciary, we have the executive, we have judiciary, we have parliament, we have agencies like Warma, NEMA. It's not for lack of all of us drawing salaries and living a good life, because we've been, we're supposed to be looking after these issues. Now, I'm told that the water was dammed on Watkins River without the proper procedure being followed, but nobody's enforcing it. And people of Solai only drink water as and when Perry decides it. What kind of country presides, or what kinds of leaders preside over that kind of impunity? Madam Speaker, I could read the recommendations, but I'm sure all of you have read for yourself. But really, this level of impunity, this level of, I don't know what to call it, a revolution is in the offing in this country. And this revolution is not about tribes, it's not about where we come from, it's about the divide between the haves and the have-nots. People are watching us. They are saying, what are our leaders doing? Or is it that the lives of the poor is worth nothing? We cannot have people becoming the gods because they have money and the poor are just beggars. I am surprised that we are still debating this issue and that nobody has been, arraigned in court, and even where these things are in court, we are surprised that the speed with which this is moving is very slow. So for me, really, I don't want to belabor the details of the report. The report is very clear, the recommendations are very clear, and these are some of the issues that we need to deal with. Our sector of, be it forestry, be it the land issue, be it our education system that are broken, be it our health system that are broken, have these faceless people that are actually lording over the rest, and nobody is doing anything. This House has stood up, this House has come up with and has investigated this case, and the rot. We're told of situations within the observations where millions of shillings have been given to shut everybody down. Millions of shillings have been given with provincial administration and other, people within government coming to have the villages in Solai sign up and shut up. This is unacceptable, and this House must not be part of that rot. I'm told there's committees somewhere that actually went to have a meeting in the house of Perry Mansour. Who does that? My question is this House going to ensure that the recommendations in this committee report are supported by this House and everybody that is responsible for the loss of lives? Because what this will serve to do will give notice and bring to book and bring to account the rot that is happening in our country in all sectors. Look at what's happening to our forests. Look at what is happening to our, and to our land that's being grabbed left, right, and center. Look at the education system. What is it that is left? Madam Speaker, even as people, campaign to become leaders in this country, what are they going to preside over? What is it that they will be presiding over? Dead bodies? So for me, Madam Speaker, I'm very saddened. And that the sadness that I speak of is actually one that shows a collapse, almost a near collapse of our country. I'm aware, for instance, that our coffers or our treasury is broke. People haven't, they give us excuses about IFMIS and the end of August, but the truth of the matter, and I've raised this in this House before, our national debt is out of control. We don't have money. I think we are broke as a country, and even if we don't want to admit it, our institutions are not working. So what is it are we campaigning to preside over? We must change this, or otherwise history will judge us really harshly as leaders. We have political responsibility, we have moral responsibility, but more importantly, we're employed to do this. And we have a responsibility to do our job, namely, to speak up for those that cannot speak up for themselves, to represent those that have brought us to this House, oversight as per the mandate that was given to us in our Constitution, Article 96, and make sure that we mitigate against presiding over our country that's coming to a standstill because of the impunity that is going on in every sector. The Solai Dam rot, the Solai Dam tragedy is just a tip of the iceberg in every sector that we have in this country. We will have no country to preside over, Madam Speaker, even for those of us who are very happy to be sitting here as leaders. What leadership? What kind of leadership? And I've said this again, in any crisis, in any problems, there are those aggressors. Perry Mansour has been an aggressor. But worse than the aggressor are the people who are conspiring with him, yet they are in positions of power. But more importantly, this House, thankfully, has not been just a bystander. Let's not be bystanding. We have now a great report to implement. Let's not be on the wrong side of history as the bystanders and watch those that watched as people, like victims, people who are victimized just because they are poor. Madam Speaker, I support every aspect of this report, and I would again like to say that I'm very proud of the contents of it. I have read it. The observations that this committee has made actually are painful to read and just sounds like it's out of this world. But that said, we now have an opportunity to make sure that we implement the recommendations and are not judged as having stood by as our country went to the dogs. I support these recommendations. I support this report. I congratulate the team, that, especially those that had the moral authority to stand with the people and sign this report, and I can be relied upon to help implement it, Madam Speaker. Congratulations, team. I'm very proud to be part of this, to be associated with this, and I stand to support, Madam Speaker. I thank you.
Very well. Senator Kajwang Moses Otieno.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I rise to add my voice to the senators who have spoken before me in support of the report of the committee that was established by this House to look into the Solai Dam tragedy. Mr. Speaker, this committee has done us proud. It is a select committee that has brought back a report to the House before the expiry of its term. And for those of us who've been around for a while, we have seen select committees established, but their reports rarely end up in this House. Madam Speaker, the chair of this committee for Solai and I served in a select committee some time back. We were looking at reforms to prisons and Bostall's institutions and making sure that we aligned them to the Constitution. And we did very impressive recommendations until we tripped on a live wire. And the live wire was the fact that Kenyans of high positions have stolen land belonging to prisons across the country. And suddenly that report never saw the light of day. And so I want to congratulate the group that sat down, went to the public to come up with the 25 recommendations that are before us. Madam Speaker, I also want to pay special tribute to our boys and girls at the Kenya Defense Forces, because this report tells us that they responded quickly and they could have been the only meaningful response to this tragedy. We are saying that counties need to have capacity to address disasters. We didn't see the county respond. It was the KDF that responded. We didn't see the national government respond, unless KDF is now to be considered a national government entity. And Madam Speaker, it has come to a time when we need to start thinking about the mandate of our boys in uniform. Because we are in an era where wars are no longer fought using bayonets and machetes and rifles. We are in an era where wars are being fought online, in social media. We've got cyber wars. And so we need to make our boys more meaningfully engaged in other aspects of national building and construction. And Madam Speaker, we could have even said that going forward, in terms of construction of dams in this republic, we could make that something that the KDF or the NYS or any other disciplined government unit can render. So we train them properly, let them understand the specifications, and let them be the ones to deliver that service. Madam Speaker, I have always reflected on the 10 plagues that are contained in the Bible, the 10 plagues that Almighty God visited upon the Egyptians at the point when the Israelites wanted to be freed. And of all the 10 plagues, Madam Speaker, it is at the 10th plague that the firstborns died. But there was an 11th event, which has never been considered the 11th plague. It is at the 11th event that the men and the strongest and the soldiers of Egypt died in water. And I've always wondered, why did God reserve death in water to be the final and to be the last event for the people of Israel to be freed? And it is because death in water is one of the most painful things you can ever come across. Death is death. But to die in water, Madam Speaker, the way these 48 people died, it was the ultimate punishment for innocent Kenyans. If you look at the list of 48, previously we were being told it's a number of 48. It was statistics. But this committee has helped us to see the names. You will find Metrin Nanjala, Charles Mushiri Njunge, Jane Midhoni Munene. I have seen someone called Ruth Wairimu. And Madam Speaker, by the time you are giving the name Ruth to a child, you are reflecting on the biblical Ruth, a woman of faith. And this is a woman who probably grew up in faith and had faith in the future. There are children here. And the saddest thing is to go to bed in the evening. First of all, prepare dinner, whether it is on a jiko or a stove or on firewood, and eat with your family, and sing songs with your family, and say a prayer with your family, and tuck your children in bed. And then the next day, you are all dead. And that is what happened to these people. And so, Madam Speaker, when we talk about the bourgeois and the rich people and the powerful guys, the Perrys of this world and the other accomplices to the act, sometimes they think we are wasting time in this Senate talking about 48 small people. These are the 48 people who make Kenya what it is. And this is not any section of Kenya. This is the entire Kenya. This is the hope of parents of this republic and the hope and the future of this country that was snuffed out in one night. And therefore, Madam Speaker, the 25 recommendations that the committee has brought, one thing I'm happy about is that now we are bringing in some discipline by identifying who should take action, what time frame within which the action should be taken, and who should follow up. And I congratulate the committee for bringing this framework, because you can see for every recommendation who should take action, when, and who should ensure that follow-up is done. And other speakers have also wondered loudly, for us to put this tragedy in context, should we pray that Nairobi Dam burst its banks? It will kill our brothers and sisters in Kibra and in surrounding areas. Maybe then it will look like a real tragedy. Or should Ndakaini burst its dams so that it wipes property and the lives of the affluent? Maybe then it will be a tragedy. But we maintain as a House that the lives of 48 are as important as the lives of those who died in Westgate, as the lives of our boys who are dying in Somalia every day, as the life of any member of this country who loses his life unnecessarily. Madam Speaker, I want to propose also that this report and the recommendations, a copy should find its way in our counties. Because county governments are digging some things they are calling dams, but they are just shallow graves. They're just death traps, Madam Speaker. If a crisis or a tragedy was going to occur in Homa Bay County, where I've seen the kind of things they are digging, calling dams, Madam Speaker, if the rain was a little bit too much, in fact, it is God who's still keeping us alive, the folks that live around some of the dams that have been built in our counties. The standards we are talking about should not just apply to the national government. These same standards must be enforced for every dam or water storage facility that is set up in this republic. Madam Speaker, I learned through this committee that we've got two authorities in that space on water. We've got WARMA, Water Resources Management Authority, and we've got another animal called Water Harvesting Authority. I don't know what they do, whether it is an authority where for you to work you have to be a rainmaker, and the committee also didn't seem to tell us exactly what they do. Proliferation of authorities with mandates that are not clear and with zero visibility. I would like this Water Harvesting Authority, if they are following these deliberations, to find a way of engaging this Senate so that the Senate can understand what they do, the Senate can support them, otherwise we'll be calling for their disbandment. Finally, Madam Speaker, I want to thank this committee for working very hard under a hostile climate. The members of the committee who spoke told us that they faced intimidation, they got calls, they were threatened, but they decided to soldier on. And even though some members have gone on record questioning why not everyone signed, I don't think that is a problem. As long as a report has been signed by a majority of the members of the committee, we should not draw adverse conclusions about the others. And that's the thing that I would like to beg the members of the Senate, not to come to adverse conclusions. This committee worked collectively, and 5 out of 9 signed, and the report is before the House. That is proper. We should not question where the others were, because they are bound by the collective decision of the committee. And if anyone disputed what the committee said, they ought to bring a minority opinion. And until someone brings a minority opinion, we will say that all the 9 members of the committee did a good job. But, Madam Speaker, this trend of threats and intimidation to committees that are working on behalf of the Senate, we must call it out and we must deal with it. Madam Speaker, I'm chairing the Public Accounts Committee of this House. I'm doing a job on behalf of this House. And every twist and turn of inquiry, we find people calling us to threaten us, calling us to intimidate us, and others calling us to compromise us. On an inquiry that we will soon be tabling before the House, Madam Speaker, where we are investigating crooks and thieves who are going to schools and trying to find ways of stealing school land. Madam Speaker, schools should be hallowed grounds. There should be grounds where you step on without shoes, just the way Moses was told to step on some grounds without shoes. You cannot go to a school to steal land. And if you are to do that, the hottest corner of hell is definitely going to be reserved for you. And Madam Speaker, when we do an inquiry on behalf of this House, I receive calls. And I want to go on record that I have been called, I have been threatened. Strange people have appeared at my gate. If it were not for the vigilance of my watchman, we will probably be talking about the same story of Ojode, of Saitoti, of Mutula, of Kajwang, of Boy Jumaboy, of Ouko, of JM Karaoke. Many others have come before me and have disappeared finally. I am not afraid of going down that route. But, Madam Speaker, I must say that I fear none but God himself, because he's the one who has put me in this position of responsibility. He's the one who gives me the breath to be able to come and do the job that the people of Homa Bay voted me to do. And so for those fond of calling senators and leaders of this House and members of this House, threatening them, intimidating them, appearing at their doorsteps, tapping their telephone conversations, and offering enticements and bribes to members of this House, I would like to say shame on them. Because this House is not going to go the direction that the country has moved away from. I am so happy that the Solai committee report, we never heard of wrangles. We never heard of intimidation. We never heard of bribery. We never heard that members had taken money and so they were bringing in a minority report. And that is a spirit that I want to encourage all members of this House. And Madam Speaker, on the issues I've talked about, the intimidation and threats that have been made on my person, probably it will be futile to go and report to a police station when sometimes you feel like the persons you're investigating are part and parcel of that system. But I've put it on record today that those threats must stop, and the crooks in this republic must know that this Senate is that House where they will not be able to get away with their shenanigans. Mutula Kilonzo and his committee have shown us the way. We have no other duty, we have no other option but to follow this route to soldier on despite the threats, despite the intimidation. Madam Speaker, I support.
Very well spoken. Senator Makori Beatrice Kwamboka.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise to support this report fully, Madam Speaker. And I want to thank the committee for doing a very good job, starting with the chair of that committee, Senator Mutula, Senator Sakaja, my senator who never lets Nairobi down, Senator Sylvia Kasanga, Senator Ledama, and Senator Malakai. I thank them for appending their signatures, no matter the intimidations and the threats they faced. Kudos to them, and I applaud them fully. Madam Speaker, I got the opportunity to visit that area where the disaster had happened. Indeed, it was sad. The place where the victims used to call home, it was no longer home. Everything was swept away. Better, even the playground is more better because you can find the seats on the playground. In that area, there was nothing, completely nothing. It was disastrous. And Madam Speaker, and I commend the committee on their observation that the dam had no spillway to drain excess water, and there were no licenses on those dams And that is a very serious offense because this is a man-made disaster. And Madam Speaker, I want to go against the Solai statement. When they appeared to the committee, they said that they had lived with the community of Solai in their entire life. And why? My question is, why did they have to console the victims with money? That is corruption, Madam Speaker. You cannot compensate those people with small money like 100,000. And my question is, to that Perry Mansukman, if you go there and see where he lived, he stayed up. Then you get the dams in the middle, then the people down. Why couldn't he put the people for him to be up, then the people, then the dams? It is very unfortunate. It is bad. Nobody is above the law. And this Mr. Perry Mansuk must carry his own cross. And Madam Speaker, going to the county of Nakuru, telling the committee that they had no report on that Solai matter. Madam Speaker, I don't vote in Nakuru. I vote in Nairobi, but I'm concerned, and I'm in solidarity with the Solai victims. It is shame, total shame. If they cannot take interest of the people who are just staying close to themselves, it is so wrong. These people are they are Nakuru voters, and to the committee which deals with the environmental matters, I think that committee should be disbanded in the county assembly. They cannot tell us that they didn't have any report concerning that Solai disaster. And Madam Speaker, coming to the recommendations of the committee, I fully support them. And it is a high time, Madam Speaker, that this House comes up with an implementation committee to follow up these recommendations that are being made by several committees. And Madam Speaker, I support fully, and let this be at least a lesson to the other members who are being put at the ad hoc committee. Once you are being put in that ad hoc committee, you should comply with other members. If 5 of them appended their signatures, you went there as a team to write that report, don't fear whoever. The person who takes care of us, all of us, it's only God. Nobody should intimidate them. So, Madam Speaker, I fully support this report, and kudos to the chair. And I repeat, to the chair of this committee. I know it was hard, but he put the interest of the people first before himself. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I support.
We are getting very good debates on this. It's a very, very important report. I saw it. It's a very voluminous, a very huge report. And I think that this thing should be seen to the end. Senator Wako Naomi.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for allowing me to stand and add my voice to this very important report. As I begin, Madam Speaker, I want to congratulate the committee, and their names have been well captured in the report. I want to congratulate especially the chair, who has portrayed very good leadership skills, and has also shown that he's a bold leader. Many are the times when people are faced with challenges like that, they give up, and the cowards always run away. But congratulations, our brother, and we are proud of what you have done. I was not here when you tabled the report, but I was following, and I prayed for you. So thank you so much, and Senate is proud of this committee, and we pray that many more will come up and be like this committee. Why I'm saying that, Madam Speaker, is because we've heard so many stories about the parliament and us, and how we can easily be compromised. I have not come across any of that in my experience for the few months or the almost 1 year I've been here. But people say so many things about us as leaders. Even as I prepare myself to give my comments on this, the saddest bit is when leaders
can be compromised, and when we can, give a different story from the truth, and especially when we know that lives have been lost. Maybe some of our people in Senate or in Parliament have not been, affected. There are those of us who have been touched by national disasters or a tragedy in life, and anything like this touches our lives and moves us completely. And my prayer and request to even those people who are holding positions in this country, who have no feelings for Kenyans, who do not understand what it means to lose your loved one in such a circumstance, you should just look at yourself as a human being, because your time will also come. I'm saying that because you have, some have pretended to be very ignorant, and we have refused to have that special feelings for others. John Stott, in one of his books, said that the world is suffering because we are lacking the listening ear. We are not providing that listening ear to our people. We are here on behalf of our nation, on behalf of Kenyans, so that we can represent their interest. And even when we are discussing such a serious matter, and you feel that even your colleagues are not supporting you in this, then it is a time that we as Kenyans should ask ourselves what we are up to. So the tragedy that happened is unfortunate. The many lives we lost, the women we lost, the children, the parents, and the orphans who are there now, the widows who are there now, who do not know how to begin their lives again, is something that we should all be concerned. The problem with us is we forget so easily. In 2006, when the plane crashed in Marsabit, I was in my home and I got confused, and after that I asked myself, is this country the same? And I wasn't far from here, just here in Upper Hill, and I asked myself, is the city the same? And I was surprised, because a day after that we were moved to live in Rohom. And I saw other people laughing, others jumping, others dancing, and I felt bad. And up to today, many Kenyans are having the same feeling. The parents of the children that perished, the debate that we had just a few minutes ago, their parents are asking themselves, is the school the same? Is this nation the same? Can the Ministry of Education do something? And none of us can answer their questions. The victims, the people who have remained behind, those who have lost their lives, those who have lost their loved ones in the tragedy, are asking the same questions. Are our neighbors concerned? Are our political leaders concerned with us? And when they see the way we behave and the way we debate, that is the time they get crushed completely. And they lose hope in life. So it is unfortunate that we keep on debating. And even if we talk, I think, Madam Speaker, the many talks, the discussion, the time wasted. Because if we are debating, if we are arguing, if we are raising our concerns in this honorable house and nothing is done, I think it is unfortunate. Even as senators, when we sit here and receive our salaries at the end of the month, when we know that even for the last 10 months, 11 months, we have been debating on issues and nothing has happened. Many of us have been fighting. We have been debating so that our people on the ground can benefit. If nothing happens, then you ask ourselves, what will I be doing for the next 4 years? So it is my request to the authorities concerned so that we take things seriously. After tragedy, what next? After this report, what next? The owners of the dam, it is clear that they didn't take seriously whatever they were doing. And
In their report, the committee said, similarly, the committee notes that the owners of Milmet Dam failed to carry out environmental impact assessment as contemplated under the EMCA. They never took it seriously. The Meteorological Department warned every Kenyan that this season we will receive heavy rains. They would have known. In 2012, the biggest dam broke its walls and released millions of water in the small dam. That would have been the warning, but nobody took it seriously. And the close to 50 lives that we lost, and to be specific, 49, up to today, the families, as I said, are suffering. And my question is, we have the disaster management. What have they done up to today? What can they tell Kenyans? In their report, the committee registered very well under the response to the disaster. The multi-agency team consisting of teams from Kenya Red Cross, National Youth Service, Kenya Army, Navy, National Disaster Management Unit, and Kenya Police, World Vision, County Government of Nakuru, and other non-governmental organizations which responded to the disaster. As I was going through the report, I also saw that the owner of the dam also gave 35 million. What is 35 million compared to the lives that we lost? Even the support that we are giving is not enough. And so the recommendation that the committee has put in place should be honored, and we should implement that. The committee also said and recommended that the Ministry of Interior, the Cabinet Secretary of Interior and Coordination of National Government informed the committee that the government provides assistance of 50,000 issued to families. 50,000 cannot even buy their casket. 50,000 cannot, it is like, I don't want to say much on that, because I remember when that tragedy happened to us, some people gave us 50,000. We appreciated. But, it is nothing compared to what you have lost, and it cannot even help you. So when a whole ministry gives 50,000 to people, I think we have a lot to say, and we have a lot to consider. Madam Speaker, we have always debated on disasters and tragedies in this country. And the question I have is, the government officials, the officers that sit in different offices, what are we saying? And especially, this report has brought out the people who slept on their job. Why should those people be in those offices now? They should be at home as they wait for the next action. They should. Again, we have the county government of Nakuru. Of course, a lot of differences here and there. If the political leaders cannot unite at such a time, when can they unite and speak for their people? If the political leaders can victimize each other and sideline one another at this time, when their people need them, when can they unite? When we are all campaigning and moving from one place to the other, we all protect our own personal interest. This is the time that county should stand up as one, as a united team, and speak for the poor people that perished. Our people, the people who died due to negligence. And the responsibility should be owned by the entire nation. As members of this House, senators, many are the times, as I said, that people talk of us being compromised. If you are among the people who receive bribe and run away with the information that you know, I think you are at the wrong place. Simply because we are here to be the voice for the voiceless. Kenya is at this pathetic stage because our leaders in the past have neglected their roles. If we cannot make a difference, Madam Speaker, I think we are not doing justice to ourselves and to the nation. So as I finish and as I conclude, the committee's recommendation should be honored. And Honorable Member Senator Beatrice suggested that we should have implementation committee. My only question, as I agree with that, is we should get the people who have the same passion and who are ready to continue. If we get people who are 50-50, this report will be killed. If that then will mean the same committee to continue, because we have seen their recommendations, we have seen their passion, we have seen their commitment, I suggest that the same committee continues with the job so that we see the success of this good work that they have begun. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
It's a very passionate debate. Senator Masitsa Naomi Sionga.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to add my voice to this motion. Madam Speaker, I would like to start by applauding the Select Committee led by Senator Mutula for the diligent work and the dedication taken to accomplish this giant task. Madam Speaker, this report in itself is an initial step taken towards justice for the people and the victims of Solai tragedy. Madam Speaker, it is unfortunate that I'm speaking today on a tragedy that happened in Solai, the same date that we had the tragedy that happened with the bomb blast in one of the embassy in this country, and also the same date that the tragedy happened with the Twin Towers in America. What a coincidence. Madam Speaker, looking at the generations, 48 generations that have been lost in Solai, innocent souls that were lost in this man-made tragedy, it is sad as a country to talk about it. Since morning, or since this afternoon, we have been talking about tragedies befalling our people in this house. It is unfortunate that we have systems in place. It is unfortunate that we have departments in place. It is unfortunate that we have organizations in place that do not realize the essence of livelihood in this country. Madam Speaker, I submit that the compensation of these victims and the families that were affected must be fast-tracked and prevent further victimization that may be associated with the delayed compensation to cause more harm to the families that were left behind without any further unto. Madam Speaker, it is indeed that this committee did good work and excellent work. And as my colleagues have said, implementation, follow-up, feedback is important and key for this House. It is unfortunate that we have government officials that were involved in this particular episode that were exchanging livelihood of these particular individuals with coins, with money that are bloody, money that cannot save any life, money that cannot, I can say money that is humiliating. And more so, there are individuals who are still in offices and they are still threatening, even a simple committee that has, a select committee that has been formed. It is very saddening, it is abusing, and if the world is watching, if the country is watching, if the government is watching, to take this matter seriously. It is unfortunate that the Paris and the Patels, the so-called the Patels of this particular project are walking free. It is because they are supported by their bloody money. But we are saying, and I'm saying, that the recommendation of this committee need to be taken with the seriousness it takes, so that the people of Solai and any other people that have befallen victims of such tragedies can be listened to. The voiceless bodies that are now decaying in the soil can actually get justice. Mr. Speaker, sir, it is unfortunate that we are having people going scot-free in the government of today. We have victims of the Sinai. We have victims of the Westgate. We have victims, just to mention a few, we have victims of different tragedies that have never been compensated, and nobody has cared to know how they are doing. Mr. Speaker, sir, it is my wish that the signal of the lying, decaying souls of our generation that were taken away give us a signal on what we can do as a country. I rest my point and I support the report. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mary Senator.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for also giving me a chance to add my voice on this very important report. And from the onset, I want to congratulate the committee that has done quite a commendable job. And I really want to say that this time round, we have a committee that have shown total support to the common poor people of this country. I want to say that they brought the voice of these people to be heard. It is the first time that the views of the poor against the rich has reached the floor of this House. And I want to commend them for being bold enough to bring every stakeholder concern on the table to be listened to and to be heard on this issue of Solai. Mr. Speaker, I want to say that it's very unfortunate that we have quite a number of victims in this country who are victims of different tragedies because of negligence. This country has suffered a great loss because of negligence. We have, just the other day, victims of Kikomba fire due to negligence of some people. Today we have people in Karen who are being demolished important structures because of some negligence of some government agencies. We have just finished debating on the issue of the of children we have lost due to some negligence. I think it's just high time this country gets to look into the issue of negligence in our government agencies. I was looking at a report yesterday in a certain media house where Warma and NEMA are demolishing houses that have been built on riparian catchment areas. Why have they been allowed first to even build these houses? Why should NEMA allow these investor to do a dam in the wrong place and do it in a wrong way? Why should we keep quiet on a construction until it causes such a big tragedy to our country, and then we start looking at compensation? I want to say that this report should be implemented. The recommendation of this report should be an eye-opener to the government. This report should be an eye-opener to all other ministries who should have done their duties to prevent such an occurrence. This particular report, Mr. Speaker, sir, should be a lesson to many government agencies who today are being corrupted to allow people do wrong things, which will eventually cost this country. I think as the leadership of this country, as the leadership of the people of Kenya, as this House, we should say that negligence should be treated as a very special crime, such that if an accident has occurred because you have neglected, you have not done your duty, you face the law. Because we are suffering as a country because people have failed to do their duty. Our counties should also learn from this particular tragedy. I am told they are supposed to have an environmental management committee that should deal with these environmental management coordination regulations. And our counties have not yet done, and if they have not yet done, if they have already done, they should implement this particular act so that our people can be safe. Today we have people who are building very big buildings along our catchment areas, along our riparian areas, along our road reserves, and at the same time causing such huge losses to the public of this country and also to the government of this country. Mr. Speaker, sir, I want to say that this particular report should be implemented, and those bodies and agencies, government agencies that have been found to have neglected their duties should be brought to book. I want to say that we are in support, and I'm greatly in support of this report, and all other committees should do this commendable work by listening to these people and also writing reports that can help this country streamline services that we offer to our people. Thank you.
Senator Petronila Were.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to contribute to this report on the tragedy that was at the Solai Dam. First and foremost, I want to state that what happened at the Solai Dam and the events thereafter is a classic example of impunity in this country. That people can do anything they want for their personal benefit at the expense of the general public and get away with it. Fortunately for us in this house, we set up a committee that was incorruptible. And that committee has given us a report that tells us that this dam was illegal ab initio. Illegal. So whatever we discuss thereafter should be on the basis that this dam was illegal. And therefore, everybody responsible, everybody who is concerned with the construction of this dam, from those so-called investors, the provincial administration, the NEMA, NCA, the National Construction Authority, WARMA, must take responsibility with no questions asked. I'm happy that the DPP has already identified those responsible and the case is in court. We're even told that there was an attempted cover-up. How do you cover up something that has killed hundreds of people? From the list of those people who perished, we have people from various communities. So it is not an issue of one community. Various communities, 48 people. This is not a small number. These are breadwinners for their families. Therefore, the people affected is triple the number of those people who have passed away. And this report, therefore, should be a yardstick for how we do things in this country. From Parliament here, from the county assemblies, and the rest of the bodies in this country, when they are given a responsibility to investigate an issue that is that is affecting not just one person, but a number of people. We are told that from the reports from this has a bill, the Risk and Disaster Management Bill, sponsored by, again, our very great Senator, Super Senator Mutula Kilonzo. We should look at, yes, he should be commended for a good job. We should move very fast with that bill so that this issue of lack of a policy or legal framework for disaster management is dealt with once and for all. I close by saying that the owners of this dam must be held liable for that tragedy under the law, and even go beyond the law. They have 3,500 acres of land. Some of these people who have been displaced by this tragedy, they must be told that a percentage of that land must be allocated to the affected families. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Thank you, Honorable Senators. I therefore call the mover on the report of the Solai, on the Select Committee on the Solai Dam tragedy to reply.
Thank you, Speaker. First, I would like to thank the senators for their contribution. I've been here for a while, but I've not had the sort of passionate speeches I've listened to from Senator Naomi Wako, Senator Beth Mugo, Senator Cherargei, Senator Cheruyot, Senator Abshiro Alake, Senator Olekina, Senator Shihonga, Senator all of them, yes. The pain, in the Bible they say the truth shall set you free. Unfortunately, the pain that you see in the contribution by Senator Wako, the pain doesn't leave. I wish it could go. Sometimes I wish I didn't see the pain I saw in a pregnant Turkana lady who rescued children from mud, from water. That trauma will not go. Solai's primary school will never be the same. I can tell you. It will not happen. So the truth in this case is not going to set us free. My problem is the report is here. We have done what we need to do. What is going to happen in future is something that I cannot tell. I wish somebody would listen to us. The senators who have stated here clearly that this is a country divided into two: the rich and the poor, the haves and the have-nots. This is where Karl Marx said, this is the country of Karl Marx. If a son of a poor man in Kenya called Ole somebody was the owner of this dam, he would not be treated like a prince, like Perry Mansuk. Perry Mansuk has had the liberty to fly to India. He is going again. Yeah, man, flying business class. First class. He's going to fly, do his business, and come back. Because nothing is going to happen to him. The first order to fly, he got it ex parte. There was nobody. Nobody thinks that this man is a criminal. If the DPP had not recommended charges, we would have recommended for this man to be charged with murder, first degree. That is what the owners of the dam in Brazil were charged with, murder. Because it's death by deliberate action. When you cause death by deliberate action, you don't get a slap or a pat on your back. You're charged with murder, and you treat that person like a murderer. If these were sons of the people who matter in this country, just 10. If it was in an accident on Mombasa Road that killed the son of rich men, like I said, if those kids in Mwingi were sons of rich people in this country, they would have been flown to Nairobi Austro by helicopter. But they died on the way to Nairobi. This is the country of Karl Marx, the bourgeoisies, and the proletariat. These kids don't matter. They are probably in unmarked graves. In a few days, they will be forgotten. If you read the report of George Kigoro, some people were buried in a hurry. Why? They were in a hurry because they could not contact their relatives. They are buried in the Patel farm. They are forgotten, unmarked graves. That's what you deal with. That's what happens to people who do not matter. The Bible says, even if you walk in the valley of shadow of death, I shall fear no evil. Senator Kajwanga said he fears no evil. We walked, the ones who wanted to walk the path and walk the talk through the valley of the shadow of death. We fear no evil because we have conquered in Jesus' name. Kenya National Human Rights Commission. I've seen a report this morning. Coincidentally, I have arrived at the same finding. Same finding that the chief of Solai was compromised to draw 3 lists and put his friends. This man is still in office. This is a country of Karl Marx. People who are protected because the people who are their lords are not the constitution, but their pockets, their money, and their stomachs. Greed is what got Perry Mansuk to construct a dam like he was God. You know, he attempted to play God. And God came down and punished him. I told Perry Mansuk here that as he celebrates his wildlife, his 800-acre farm where wildlife live better than people, the cries of these children who are in primary school when they wake up every morning and look for their fathers and mothers around the house and cannot find their mothers, those cries will be in his house for the rest of his life. That is the Bible. I'm not quoting something that is out of the ordinary. That is what it is. He is cursed, that man, and his wealth. He had better begin donating his land to the people of Solai and giving them food. The worst thing you can do to a human being is deny them food. This dam has denied people food. They cannot farm, they cannot live peacefully. Every time I said they hear a small bang, they think water is coming down. The circumstances and the environment will never be the same in Solai. Those who say it was 5 kilometers, it wasn't. This tragedy went 15 kilometers of water at high speed. Sometimes I think that we should have extended this investigation to 15 kilometers to check. Because from the reports I've seen from national government, after the Solai Trading Center, what happened beyond that? You cannot even trust these county commissioners who are busy dishing money as consolation and signing. Daily Mail, London, quoted the story of Kenyan government officials paying money. Cabinet secretary sat here in this beautiful Senate and said they don't read newspapers, they don't listen to TV, they do not know. That place in the Bible where they say, hear no evil, speak no evil, and say no evil. That is what I saw here. Why would the people get to that? Again, their stomachs, they worship money, just like the Bible, and they will not see any evil. So what is our role? And I finish. There's a parable in the Bible about the person who asked, "But Lord, when did you visit me when I was in prison? When did you clothe me when I didn't have clothes? When did you visit me when I was in hospital?" That is what the Senate is. The people seated here today do not vote in Nakuru, do not live in Nakuru, will never ask for a vote in Nakuru. But history is going to show that the Senate of this republic stood for the truth, the downtrodden, Mama Mboga, the people who do not matter when it counts, except when we are looking for their votes. That is where I put the governor of Nakuru. I told him, this is not a national function. This is a people who voted you in. You should have asked the question. You are waiting for the president to tell you to go and look out for the people who voted for you? That you have no report? I don't know. This is where this country has reached. Karl Marx. Laws are made for the rich against the poor. And you have spoken. Somebody said you will not know the pain of losing a child unless you are a mother. How I pray that this country elects more women. Because you know the pain of losing children. The pain of having 52 orphans just somewhere in Solai. Some place that looks God-forsaken, but is beautiful. May the truth and justice be the shield and defender of the 52 orphans of Solai, the 48 Kenyans who lost their lives, the 223 people who were rendered destitute by a man who wanted to play God and have everything to himself, including water. I must say I have not seen anything worse than this. And I hope that the people who we have tasked with the mandate of doing what is called regulation can do their job. Mary Senator said NEMA has all of a sudden woken up from his slumber. They have gone and demolished Java and Kileleshwa petrol station, but there are people who on Awings Kodhek have a flat and a river is under it. Shame on you. There's a person here, Mbagathi Road, near Timol. The river passes under his beautiful building. But you did not give the person who runs a chemist in Kileleshwa even notice to remove medicine that is curing Kenyans. The land of Karl Marx, where people just oppress people for the sake of it. If the governors were to take cue from this, they would go and ensure the committees we have proposed under Section 29 are put in force. If there was a committee on national environment in Narok, we would not be having the crisis in Mau today, where people are so greedy they have built their tents all the way. Crocodiles have no place to bask on riparian land. Tamaa imetufikisha hapo. I'm going to close by saying that I pray for one gentleman called Nuruddin Haj. He was seated here, and that gentleman told us he was under pressure to charge watchmen as opposed to owners of the dam. I wonder who was putting him under that sort of pressure. We are prepared to hide the truth, but I want to tell the people who think that you can buy truth, you can buy senators, you can buy air, that you cannot hide the sun. You can't. And you will pay. You will perish. Where you go, there will be gnashing of teeth. It will be the hottest place in hell. Even your children will suffer the curses of the blood money you're keeping in your pocket. I beg to move. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Senators. I have determined the motion does not affect counties, and I therefore proceed to put the question that this House adopts the report of the Select Committee on the Solai Dam tragedy laid on the table of the House on Thursday, 26 July 2018. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as of the contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. Honorable Senators, order number 10, the local content bill, Senate Bill number 10 of 2018, is therefore deferred. Next order.
Order number 11, the Impeachment Procedure Bill, Senate Bill number 15 of 2018, second reading.
I call upon the mover to reply. Order, Honorable Senators, I call upon the mover to move.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir, for that opportunity. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for that, and I want to thank the chairperson of Solai Select Committee and his committee members who stood against the axis of evil. And I'm proud, we are proud of you. You are profiling Senate very well. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, because I didn't have opportunity to condole with the students that lost their lives, around 10 of them, on behalf of the people of Nandi, on behalf of myself, I want to pass our condolences and wish them quick recovery, and I hope the necessary agencies that are tasked with such work, especially in responsive mechanisms, and ensure that our children are safe. And I hope this season we will be able to prevent more fatalities in our roads. Thirdly, Mr. Speaker, sir, is today in the afternoon I was privileged to host the reigning 3,000 meters triple chase Conseslus Kipruto. And I want to congratulate the entire team that went to Nigeria. We are proud of them. Athletics is one of what has given a trademark to this country. And I don't know what brand Kenya is doing, but I hope they can use athletes so that, Mr. Speaker, sir, we can we can be proud of our athletes in this country and even other sportsmen, the football and the rest. Mr. Speaker, sir, the Impeachment Procedure Bill 2018, and I know this bill, Mr. Speaker, has generated a lot of debate because we have come up from the onset. We have come up from the onset with a now legal framework. Mr. Speaker, sir.
Order, Honorable Charage. You need to follow procedure, and in moving the bill, you need to say, Honorable Speaker, I need to move the bill, and you read your content of the bill.
No, my apologies, Speaker. I think I was carried away by the Solai issues. Honorable Speaker, I beg to move the Impeachment Procedure Bill 2018 and indicate that this bill, the principal purpose of the bill, is to provide for the procedure
Continue, Senator Sanya.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just back again to procedure in the moving of that bill. I thought I beg to move that this bill be read a second time. I think that's what is supposed to be said. Otherwise, we'll not have read it a second time, which is important.
Proceed, Senator Charage.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I beg to move the Impeachment Procedure Bill to be read a second time. Mr. Speaker, as I said, I don't know what is happening today. I've had a run-in the whole day, the whole afternoon, since when I was moving notice of motion to now. But I hope, I don't know whether the issues of Solai is affecting me. Mr. Speaker, sir, this bill is for the procedure of removal of the president, deputy president, governor, deputy governor, and members of county executive. Mr. Speaker, sir, the impeachment process anywhere across the world is a political process. But what we are doing, we are giving impetus and ensuring that we create a legal framework where the impeachment of the president and the deputy and governor, deputy governor and CECs can be done in a more structured way, a legal way, and within the law. Mr. Speaker, sir, at this point it is good to note that under Article 145, 151B, and 2, it has provided under the Constitution of Kenya, it has provided for a elaborate procedure on how a president or a deputy president can be impeached, Mr. Speaker, sir. Therefore, it is copy and paste of what essentially we have relooked at this bill, but now the process that is always there, and I know it is elaborated, it has been given in detail, and the procedure for the removal of the president and deputy president by impeachment may be described as an indictment chamber, while the Senate is the trial chamber. So Senate has been given the main aspect, they are the main people who ensure, that is why it is called trial chamber. They are the main people who prosecute. Because as you are aware, Mr. Speaker, sir, if I could borrow, it's like a quasi-judicial process that they ensure that they prosecute. That is why it's called chamber, is a trial chamber, Mr. Speaker, sir. And therefore, although the Constitution under Article 152(6) provides that a member of the National Assembly, by at least quarter of all members may move a motion requiring the president, may move, sorry, my apologies, got mixed up, 152. My apologies, 152(6). of the Constitution provides that a member of the National Assembly, supported by at least a quarter of members, may move a motion requiring the President the process to be concluded on the grounds that have been set out under Article 145, and even in the Constitution, Article 152(6, a member of National Assembly may move a motion requiring the President to dismiss a cabinet secretary, but if it is supported by at least 1/3 of the members of the National Assembly. I think that is what the overview. We are trying to look at the bill in all. Even Article 181, Mr. Speaker, sir, as also in itself provided on our county governor, should be removed. And I know, Mr. Speaker, sir, you are very keen on this, and all the senators are keen because there is a specific interest, especially one of the key roles of Senate, Mr. Speaker, sir, as all of us are aware, and that one of the role is to ensure we oversight counties. And I think there are so many that this House has done before, although some of us did not have the privilege. I think Senator Mutula Kilonzo Jr. was in the last Senate, and they did prosecute quite a number of impeachment. But I think the major obstacle at that time was the procedure, so that even as the county assemblies generate that impeachment process from the lowest level, Mr. Speaker, sir, is that they should do it within a prescribed form that we have ensured and within the law so that it becomes easy. So, Mr. Speaker, sir, on the overview of and I think the national, the overview impeachment proceedings, when a member of National Assembly submits a motion in a prescribed form, and I think this is key. Now, member of National Assembly, Mr. Speaker, sir, there is a prescribed form. So it will be easy to tie with the tradition, the usage, and the procedures that has been provided, because it is already, we have a prescribed form, and supported by at least 1/3 of the members of National Assembly to the clerk of the National Assembly, Mr. Speaker. The clerk, if satisfied that the motion complies with the act, and I think if many people will ask, are we giving too much power to clerk? No, we are not. The clerk is just to cross-check whether the charges or whether they, like for example, an issue on a third, they should be able to sit and say, the process of approving is a third, does it a third member support this process? That is the only thing they will need to check as a matter of within the law. They are not checking it as a matter of approving or disapproving. So the standard is as that. If the clerk is satisfied the motion complies with the act, he will submit to the Speaker of the National Assembly. And I think many people have said we are giving powers to the Speaker. We are not giving powers to the Speaker so much, because many people are saying, why is it that the Lord wants to give the Speaker now? And we believe, and I don't want to cast aspersion, Mr. Speaker, sir, the Speaker of the National Assembly, the Speaker of the Senate are men of integrity, beyond reproach. Like the Caesar's wife, beyond suspicion, Mr. Speaker, sir. So they are the ones who will examine the motion and have a look at it. So that is the power that people are saying we have given too much power to the speakers. Because they have now the power. And it will examine within 3 days. So we hope the speakers, of course we don't anticipate that during the lifetime of this Senate and the National Assembly or this Parliament, that someone will want to impeach the President or the Deputy President. But of course we'll see many impeachments from the governors. Is that wisdom is needed, and therefore we'll need speakers who have Solomonic wisdom to ensure within 3 days, Mr. Speaker, sir, they agree. And I think after that, after 3 days, if the motion for the wisdom of the Speaker, if it is approved, then within 14 days, that matter should be disposed to move the motion within 14 days. And therefore 3 days examining the motion that has been brought, then with the wisdom of the Speaker, if, in fact, the answer, somebody might ask, what does the law provide for? If the Speaker rejects, we have followed the principles of natural justice, where you must give reasons as to why. So if it is the reason of procedure, if it is the reason of not meeting or done in bad faith, or does not comply with the Constitution, or does not comply with any tradition and many other laws that govern our country, especially the Supreme Law. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, and it is after that time, I don't want to dwell so much into detail, is within 7 days the National Assembly must dispose or cease off the matter at that. Mr. Speaker, after that, the matter shall be transmitted. If it is approved again, the matter will be transmitted to the Senate Speaker within 2 days, and therefore the matter will now proceed. And it is important, within 7 days, receive the notice of resolution of the National Assembly. The Senate is required to convene a meeting of the Senate to hear charges against the President. And this is very important. So that is why we are calling Senate a trial chamber. That's why we are calling Senate a trial chamber. I don't know why the leader of majority acting at the moment is excited. Maybe he has taken Senate tea there at the lunch, and therefore the sugar levels are good. So the Speaker of the Senate, that is what I wanted, so Kenyans can be, I know Kenyans are curious. The Speaker of the Senate will, within 7 days, that matter should be to convene, and I think that is the same process we do with the governors. So I need to copy and paste so that Kenyans can understand the matter is brought, and the President, the Senate now sits and hears the charges against the President, and the Senate may appoint a special committee whose role is to investigate the allegations against the President. And I think, as by the tradition of this House, I think it's 11 members. If the special committee finds any of the allegations to be substantiated, the Senate is to vote on the impeachment charges. What I want to say, what we have factored in, even as we look at the charges, the Senate sits and looks at it, we have also taken into consideration on principles of natural justice, where the President has an opportunity to come to this Senate and defend themselves, the way in the former Senate, where governors could either through their legal representative or any other. So the President now, when he will come here, we will give him a date and place and time of hearing. If, again, if the 2/3 of senators, and this is uphold the charges, and then the President ceases to hold office. But I think anyway, Mr. Speaker, sir, anywhere across the world, the impeachment procedure has always been a political process more than a legal process. I think on the procedure for removal of President applies with necessary modification to the removal of the Deputy President. So I wouldn't want to go through that part because this needs to be clear, and therefore we ensure we look at that. And the removal of the Cabinet Secretary, I think part 3 of the proposed bill on impeachment. If a motion, again, we have prescribed, the member of National Assembly requiring the President to dismiss, the clerk will look at that motion again, Mr. Speaker, sir. If it complies with the bill, the Speaker within 3 days, and I've said, of course, we expect the Speaker of the National Assembly, with guidance of Solomonic wisdom, I wouldn't want to say lack of it, is that we'll be able within 3 days to seize the matter. And therefore, if at least supported by a third, then the National Assembly, Mr. Speaker, sir, is also called upon to form a select committee, and one select committee to investigate within 10 days. So there is a timeline so that we prevent the stretching. So 10 days, the select committee formed by National Assembly should look into the matter. And I hope, Mr. Speaker, sir, when such issues will come, we look at our colleagues that they need to rise and stand on a pedestal of integrity as being paragon of hope against corruption. If going by what we have seen before, especially the issues of sugar, sugary, bittersweet sugar things in this country, we will expect that also the members of National Assembly, within 10 days, they should invest allegations against cabinet secretaries. And I've seen one cabinet secretary, Mr. Speaker, sir, I wouldn't want to discuss because that is raising a lot of issues when some rhinos, around 11 of them, I think the 11th one, it died yesterday. May his soul rest in peace because that's the pride of this country. I think this is when now the committee within 10 days need to sit down. And of course, the cabinet secretaries will not be telling us to go to hell. I think that is in compliance with Chapter 6 on leadership and integrity. If allegations are substantiated, if they are unsubstantiated, then the procedure does not go beyond. If majority, in fact, we have not, if majority, I think by acclamation, if that is the interpretation that the Speaker will, by acclamation, the President has an obligation to dismiss that cabinet secretary. So if this bill, and I want to urge senators to support, and even members of National Assembly, that if they support this bill, I can look, there are many cabinet secretaries that should be on the chopping board, so that we ensure the integrity of this country. I'm not casting aspersions, I'm not a court of law, but looking by the way Chapter 6 is being violated, Mr. Speaker, sir, if this bill comes into focus, we'll right many wrongs that have been committed, and therefore, I think shall dismiss. And also, what we have introduced to ensure that, Mr. Speaker, sir, we are not being unfair to cabinet secretaries. We also ask the right to be heard, to send a representative and ensure may appear, but on this aspect, Mr. Speaker, sir, they don't appear before they don't appear before the National Assembly, but they appear before Select Committee. And I think that is what is very important as Kenyans. They must. That is why we are now principles of natural justice, the right to be heard, and the right to a fair, just process as per the principles of natural justice. Mr. Speaker, sir, I find that there are two main parts, and I think this is the concern of all Kenyans, and that is part 4, removal of the county governor and deputy governor, and I hope there are no senators who are intending to sponsor any of those at the lowest level. But Mr. Speaker, sir, a member of County Assembly, we have ensured that we have also a prescribed form. Governor is required to submit the motion to the Speaker in a prescribed form. So we have assisted, Mr. Speaker, sir, we know challenges. You are a senator of the great people of Samburu. Capacity sometimes is not an issue. I'm not saying we have illiterate MCAs or we don't have MCAs who have not gone to school, but sometimes capacity is a challenge. So we have given you a prescribed form, so that by the time you feel the governor under Article 181 has violated the provisions of that section, article, Mr. Speaker, sir, we give the MCA, member of County Assembly, a prescribed form. And the Speaker also has been put on the highest pedestal and the highest. And therefore, now it depends with the Speakers, 47 we have in this country. It depends that if there are men and women of integrity, when such motion comes, I know there are many complexities that comes with removal of governor. Therefore, you also decline or approve. And if, this is very critical, if the Speaker of County Assembly of Nandi, or County Assembly of Makueni, or County Assembly of Mombasa will look at that issue, if the Speaker refuses to approve the motion, they must give reasons. The reason we are doing that, Mr. Speaker, sir, is to avoid where the Speaker, out of any vested interest, can decline to approve the motion simply of vested interest, because now we have put them to task of giving reasons. And I think that is what is important, so that even MCS within 4 days has to reason. And that is very important. If the Speaker fails to respond to a motion within 7 days, the motion shall be deemed to have been approved. So now, Mr. Speaker, we have ensured, we have tightened the process. Within 4 days, if they refuse, they must give reasons. If the Speaker, you know, Kenya, Mr. Speaker, sir, we have a challenge about deputy speakers, and we have discussed with my committee. I know sometimes courts have said they are not. You know, the Speaker can become technically absent, can become on leave, can go on paternity or maternity leave, can become technically sick, and the motion is on his table. We have guarded by saying within 7 days, if there is no refusal,
by the county speaker, the motion is deemed approved. So if there is monkey business, or if there is vested interest, Mr. Speaker, sir, we have protected by ensuring that within that 7 days, the motion is deemed approved. And I think that is what is important, just the way we have done to any law that the president does not assent. Within 14 days, we have given timeline. At least 7 days before motion is the clerk of the county assembly is required to serve the governor with a copy of the motion and invite the governor to be heard. So we have ensured, you know, if I stand correct on the Wambora case, the reason, one of the reasons some of these charges is because the governor at that point in time, some of the principles of natural justice were not followed. And that is why we have given opportunity to the governor to be heard, and therefore he can appear before the county assembly to ensure that there is no process where his rights or where his to be heard or to a fair, just process is conducted. And of course, by 2/3 majority supports the proposed impeachment, the matter then proceeds to Senate. And that is what is important. Submit notice of motion and other necessary documentation to Senate within 3 days. So we have tried to make sure the process, so 2/3 majority in the county assembly approves. Within the matter proceeds to the Senate. In this regard, the Speaker of the county assembly shall submit notice of motion and any other to Senate. Within 10 days, the Speaker of the Senate is required to convene the meeting of Senate to hear the charges against the governor. In this regard, the Senate may investigate the matter with or without the involvement of a special committee. So I know in the past, this House has used special committee to hear these issues. And I think that is what is important. So the Senate may, with or without special committee, can look at the matter and ensure, Mr. Speaker, sir, they decide on whether with or without the involvement of a special committee. So it is the wisdom of the Speaker again. If the Speaker deems that the matter or the charges drawn against the governor has been or will be prosecuted in a fair, just manner by a special committee, it will be. But that one is not an impediment to ensure the success of prosecuting of that matter. I'd say this House is a trial chamber on this matter. And in majority, of course, we'll use county delegations. So this means that if you are not in a delegation, you will not vote. And of course, we know the rules that if you are like my good friend Senator Were, if you are nominated, of course, you know where your place is. But on this, we use a vote of delegations. Either to, if the charge is upheld, then the governor will cease to hold office. And the Speaker of the Senate again will inform the Speaker of the County Assembly of that resolution. If the Senate vote fails, then a motion to impeach the governor on the same charges may only be introduced in the County Assembly 90 days from the date of previous Senate vote. So after 3 months, so we will not want to see if a matter comes, for example, they want to impeach governor of, I don't want to say which governor looks impeachable. I'm cautious saying that if, for example, County X, you have impeached him this week and the vote fails, it is not impeached, the Senate Speaker communicates back. What happens? We have put a stopgap measure of 90 days. That is around 3 months. Is it 3 months or 4 months? 3 months. So we know there is what we call principle of double jeopardy in criminal law, where you cannot bring the same charges over the same issue. So if we don't take care, within 1 week, the MCS might bring back again that matter. And I think the Council of Governors, the same procedure for the governor, that is what I wanted to highlight so that we can follow, and senators, we need to only to modify the deputy governor. On that aspect, as I finish about the governors, I have heard governors are not comfortable with this bill. We want to tell them, I know of many governors who are serving their second term. They are headed here. This is called trial chamber. And when you are in trial chamber, you should be ready. We are preparing the groundwork for them. Even as Senator Mutula Kilonzo goes back to the village to be, God willing, to be the governor of Makueni, the person who will become the senator of Makueni should have a proper legislative and policy framework in case Senator Mutula Kilonzo Jr. violates the Constitution or has a gross misconduct. That is what we are trying to do. So the Council of Governors, I want to assure them this kingdom is not about the animal kingdom, where other animals are more equal than the others. This is where we apply equity and equality in the same measure. So they should not be uncomfortable with this bill, because I wanted to part for removal of county government. It is not witch hunt. We are not doing this law in bad faith. We are not doing this law because Senate is interested in running for governor or anywhere, whether you come from Samburu. I know, Mr. Speaker, sir, your governor is serving the second term. And I know there are many people who are salivating for his seat. And I know he might want to run for Senate. It is not in bad faith. We are doing this. The Constitution, and I want to advise the Council of Governors, led by the able chair, His Excellency Governor Nanok, that they should not worry. This is just, we are ensuring that we move, we build on the Constitution, the legislative, the growth. As a lawyer, and we have my senior counsel here, although he has not gotten the SC, Senator Mutula Kilonzo Jr. and Senator Okongo Mgeni was saying earlier today that there are 3 senior counsels in this house. That is we want to, in law, there is what we call precedent. We have also given courts of law the aspect where they can grow the law in courts through the interpretation of the Constitution, through the precedent that we set in courts. So the law grows daily. Let me borrow those words. So we will ensure that the laws that we put in place will ensure the devolution works. And this law should not scare governors, Mr. Speaker, sir. They should not scare governors. Why should you get scared if you know you have not violated the law? We have not said this politically motivated. We are not saying you should give handouts as a governor. Or we are not saying you should, this is if you violate the law. Even the president, even the deputy president, if they violate the Constitution under the provisions of the law, they can be removed, Mr. Speaker, sir. So we should tell the governors, unless they are planning. You know, when I saw, and it was laughable, I saw governors issuing a press conference. I don't know. I think we have 3 learned senior counsel, including myself, Mr. Speaker, sir. I think the Council of Governors, we should give them pro bono services. And I know I heard Senator Mutula Kilonzo Jr. saying he used to advise one of us here, and if he had used to advise, he would not have taken that route. I want to ask Council of Governors, we have 3 SCs in this house. If they need legal advice, I was shocked when I saw them saying they should be excluded in the fight against corruption. That is why this law, unless you are premeditating, Mr. Speaker, sir, to commit an offense, why should I worry about the law that will come into place? They don't want to violate the law. Why are they saying this is target, this is witch hunt? They are saying they are now talking to members of National Assembly. The senators are coming for our jobs. The decision of whether to vote a governor or not. And I know Senator Ledama Olekina is governor. Samuel Kuntai Oletuna is having his second term. We are preparing you for better tomorrow. So that if you become, God willing, if you become the governor of Narok, we have a legal framework where you will feel, if at the time you are impeached or not, you will have feel the law has been fair. It is as simple as that. That's our business as a senators. So why would my governor or Governor X be worried about this law? This law is trying to bring order. And Mr. Speaker, sir, when you do social foundations of law, and I was taught by Professor Tom Ojienda and Professor Muta Kangu that the reason some of us, we surrendered, and I think is it Thomas Hobbes, Jeremy Bentham, and the rest, Hans Kelsen, on the Kantian pure theory. I'm not a philosopher, I'm just, that's 101, FLB 101 in first social foundations of law. The reason all of us surrender our institution called governance is not governance to create anarchy. It is governance to create law and order. I'm just paraphrasing, Mr. Speaker, sir. Yeah, that's Thomas Hobbes. Yeah, that's Thomas Hobbes. And I think, is it Jeremy Bentham who says, life at that time was short, nasty, and they say nasty, brutish, and short. That is why we surrendered all that issue. So I want to tell the governors, let us not be worried about this law. Finally, Mr. Speaker, on the removal of CEC, I think I still have time. I can see, I think also, I can see Senator Ledama. I don't know whether the charges against violation of Mao issues can be used to impeach a governor. Maybe when he will be contributing on this, he will tell us if that is violation of the law. Removal of the county executive committee member, I think it is almost the same place that process, and I think we have created a prescribed form by a member of county assembly submitting to the speaker of the respective county assembly a motion in a prescribed form. But at least 1/3, I think we have tried to ensure we create a standard procedure so that the speaker does not have a reason. Because if we had given them room without a prescribed form in the impeachment of a CC, Mr. Speaker, sir, the speaker could have, maybe because of good handwriting or how, you know, an MCA can decide to use an advocate, another one can decide to do on their own. So the speaker should not have a reason because it is a prescribed form where you do a checklist. And in fact, you have assisted the clerk, Mr. Speaker, sir, to do what we call checklist, so that by the time they are approving, it becomes easy. And I think if 1/3 of the members of county assembly, like from Kakamega, the Green Jewel, if they agree, then the process of removing a CC, I don't know which county was that, that was Viga. I think the Viga, that is my neighboring county where they removed 2 CCs after that, but at least 1/3. And also the process is almost similar, Mr. Speaker, with the requirements, the member intending to move the motion is notified within 2 days. If, however, the speaker declines to approve the motion, the speaker shall inform the member within 2 days. So we have reduced for the governor 4 days. Are we together? For the CEC is 2 days. So, and the reasons must be given. The reason we are doing that, Mr. Speaker, sir, is not that it is not that it is a tradition that we want to perpetuate. We are trying to ensure that we focus on ensuring that there is no slip in the process. Mr. Speaker, sir, the member is required to move, and if supported by at least 1/3 of all them, the county assembly shall appoint a select committee to investigate within 14 days. The member of county assembly has a right to appear and be represented before the select committee during investigation. So, Mr. Speaker, sir, on the principles, I don't know, Speaker, I hope time is we still have time. If the same process on the same process of natural principles, we have also ensured that a member of county assembly, not a member of county executive, and I've seen, Mr. Speaker, even governors should come kneeling down and thanking us and say, long live the Senate, hail the Senate. Do you know why? Because in the past, they could not fire a CC. Like Bomet County, there is a CC that was fired by a governor, your good friend, Governor Isaac Ruto. He could not be gone home because there was no proper law in place. The governor should look at the Senate as a partner, not in crime and graft and corruption and lethargy in counties, but as a partner of changing lives of the people at the lowest level, even along the cut line in Mao. So I want... That is what, Mr. Speaker, sir, I know the sugar levels of my good friend Ledama. He did... Oh.
Honorable Senators, Senator Charagay, you have 23 more minutes to continue moving. Honorable Senators, it's now 6:30 p.m. Time to interrupt the business of the Senate. The House therefore stands adjourned until tomorrow, Wednesday, 8th August 2018 at 2:30 p.m.